Live from the res here, special guest, Dr. Paul Cuero Jr. from Campo, Kumeyaay Nation. How you doing today, sir?
Doing good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me over.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. I plan on having you here a long time ago, but with COVID and everything, it's been hard to kind of travel and do public stuff. How's that been for you? I bet there's been a lot of things you haven't been able to do in the last couple years.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm one of those people that have a lot of those symptoms where I get, diabetes, overweight, and I did end up getting it though, and but I had the shots, and so I didn't get it. When I did get it, I didn't get really sick. I was really lucky, I just had like a headache for 3 days. I didn't lose my taste or nothing like that, so I was pretty lucky at that it didn't take me out like we heard for so many other people. But yeah, it's been cumbersome. You can't go places. You can't do things that, I know, like me and my wife, sometimes we would take drives. We'd go through the desert, wouldn't get off nowhere, but we'd take a drive to go through the desert and look around, go to the ocean. But, and that was good. I mean, it was good to get out there and and when we got sick, we did that too. We took a drive through the desert, came all the way back around and went to the ocean, and we're saying, this is good medicine for us to get out there and just to be out there in this environment, and because we don't go to the ocean as much as like I would like to, something that belongs to us, where we could say this is our home, where right now we go there and it's like all these other people.
I know the feeling. I went down there one time for that program, Native Like Water, ran by Mark Chavez. He invited me down to go down and speak and whatnot. And I went down there, and he had a bunch of our Native youth from the different reservations. And then he invited their parents, and he just had a bunch of, res natives down there. And I was looking around. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen so many of our own people on the beach. Like every time I've gone down there, it's like, my family or just a couple people, and all these other people who are not indigenous to the land, but that's our indigenous coastline. And I told Mark, I said, man, this is pretty cool. Like everywhere I look around, and all I've seen right now is native families, and it's like that's probably what it was a long time ago. But you get so disconnected. And I'm one of those guys that I never grew up going to the beach because, like yourself, our reservations are pretty far from the coastline. So to go to the beach is something I didn't really grow up doing as much. And so because of that, I don't really swim much. I'm not a water person as much. I don't take my shirt off and things like that. So, but to be down there was cool because my kids were in the water and they were enjoying it. But yeah, it's weird. You go to the coastline, our coastline, we're like aliens in our own little spot there.
Well, when I was a boy, we did go to the beach a lot. And, we would swim way out there, me, my dad, and my uncle, and my cousin. We'd swim way out there past the waves, and I wasn't afraid. Today, I'm afraid of the water, like sharks, like different things. But when you're young, when you don't know things, you're not afraid. But now, the worst thing for me is walking on sand. That's a workout.
You're not doing the Rocky montage where he's racing against Apollo. You caught COVID and you got past it. You're able to get past it and everything. Were you pretty nervous about it? The long-term effects of it, like with your ability to sing and to speak. The people call upon you to do a lot of things. Over many years now, you've been a cultural teacher, singer, leader. With Peon and Bird and our storytelling and our histories, all the different things you do. Were you worried about COVID kind of taking that from you a little?
Like I said, we've seen so many people pass away from it. And I remember putting on Facebook, well, I got it, and hope I make it. That's all I could say, and there was, Bobo was going to get married, and I was supposed to marry them, and I got COVID at that time, and I couldn't do it. And, and I was telling them, I want to, but I don't want to get nobody else sick. I don't want, for somebody else to get it. And so, I said, I think, and then also one of the young men that used to sing with me, he passed away, and I couldn't go sing for him either. The same thing. I had COVID, and I couldn't go. And, I felt bad about that because, I wanted to be there. but I didn't want to get nobody else sick either. Like I said, especially our people who were dying from it. And I didn't want to carry that burden of giving it to somebody and somebody to pass on. So it did take me away from two things that were very important to me. But, that's, but I had to look for everybody else's safety. As well as my own, like I said, I didn't really get sick, and I was fortunate with that. And, but there were so many of our people that weren't, especially, when we look at the desert, a lot of the river tribes that were losing people left and right. And, and then, even some of our own people believing that it's not true, that. And to tell the truth, when you look at some of those other diseases that we've had in the past, where it's killed millions of people, this hasn't really done that compared to our population's a lot huger now, too, around the world. And so, but I think one of the things that, that we're not talking about is that, look what our people went through when they first came. They think disease killed more than the wars did, when they first got here. It just wiped out a lot of people, and simple things, chicken pox, measles, things that we didn't have immunity to. When you go back and look in our culture, when the Spanish flu came around, we still had medicine men that were in Manzanita, and they vowed to protect the people, saying that, we're going to protect our people here. And none of our people, they said, got that disease, so we came through it. Today, we don't have those medicine men. That's what's scary, because we always had people that were looking out for all of us. And today, when I look at our people, we're kind of more separated. We don't look out for each other like we once did. And that's when our culture starts to slide. And that's what's scary, because the very things that we do ties to our culture and our belief system. And when we start to lose these things like that, then we're left to what? Who do we turn to? What do we turn to? Because our culture's always been very strong to help us get through things. And when we don't have that, I think that's where we see more and more people lost. For instance, I've seen people having birthdays for people that are dead. And I'm thinking, wow, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Why didn't you have that when they were alive? And for us, that's, you're not supposed to speak of them. They're not supposed to let them go. The old people used to say, if you hold on to them, they're not going to want to go to where they're supposed to go to. But again, when our people don't know our own culture, they're not dealing with those emotions, which our culture helps us to do that, to deal with the emotions of these things. And if you don't know our culture, then it becomes, well, I'm going to have a birthday party for this person that's dead. Wow. Why? It doesn't make sense. But that's what happens when you get away from your culture, to help you deal with these things that would help you get through it. We have these rituals that's designed so that you know how to deal with it. Like long time ago, cutting of the hair, painting your face black, and all that was to do was to, when somebody came and approached you, they seen that, they knew that you had lost somebody. Meaning, when they seen that you had lost somebody, I got to be careful with my words, because this person's in mourning. So there was ways that we knew when somebody was in mourning, so we knew how to address them. That, hey, they're going through something, so now my demeanor needs to be different. How do I, how I approach this person? Today, for us, my mom used to say, tonight we're going to spend the last night with this person. This is the last time. And that's huge. That this is the last time we're going to spend the night with him, and it goes by so fast. And yet our people are not willing to do that. And then we wonder why later on they kind of go crazy. It's like, because you didn't mourn and you didn't follow our protocols to help you get through this. And that then it becomes, you become unhealthy. Whoever's around you becomes unhealthy. And, again, we had ways to deal with this to help us get through these things, to make sure that we stayed healthy and we kept our family healthy. And, I think that when we look at our culture, we had a lot of things that were in place to help us with any kind of situation that comes across, like COVID. Everybody staying home. We had nobody to remind us, hey, do these things, like smudge, smudge your house out, because that, they now find that, hey, yeah, when you do that, it does kill a lot of germs off. But that's something our people already knew. And we didn't have people that coming forward, saying, hey, this is what you need to do. Do this every day. It will help you get through this pandemic. So we don't have these people. And even the people that we do have, sometimes we, they don't know what they're talking about, or, instead of building ourselves up, we're so quick to pull ourselves down. And that's new to us. That was never our methods. That's why we had all this different, things that throughout our whole life, like, hey, you're going to become a man. Well, we're going to make you, this is the ceremony that says you're a man now, or you're a woman. So we had all these things in place that taught us how to be good humans, good. Of course, we've always had bad people too. But, I know, like, they told a story, like, a long time ago where in Kumeyaay, there's a village there, and there was a young man, he was shooting arrows at white people. And they kept telling him, stop, because they're going to come back and they're going to kill us all. They got guns. And he kept doing it. He thought it was funny. He'd go shooting at them. And they said, what are we going to do? And they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Everybody that sees him tell him, you don't look good. You look like you're sick. And after a while, people keep telling you something like that. You start to believe it. And he said, I better go see the medicine man. So he comes over and he tells him, and he said, okay. Yeah, and he makes this concoction and says, here, drink it. He drinks it, he dies. And that's how they got rid of that person, like.
That's one way to do it. Huh?
Yeah, he could cause them all harm.
Yeah.
And so for the betterment of the people, well, we're going to have to do this. We warned you, we told you, but you didn't want to listen. This is the outcome. Today we have some things like that at a reservation where we have people that do a lot of things, but we won't stop it. Mm-hmm. We won't say, hey, stop it or leave here. Mm-hmm. We'll say, oh, they're members, and yeah, but they don't have that right to cause harm for other people.
And it seems like the stakes have really kind of increased with fentanyl and these the different opioids, the pills and the addictions of those. In our area, I know we've lost people to COVID and a lot of people have gotten sick, but at that same time period, we've lost, I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but I know that I've been to way more funerals for overdose or of fentanyl and things like that. And it's like, well, how do those things get into our communities? Well, somebody is bringing that into our community, welcoming it in. Sometimes that's welcomed in through a relationship, a handshake. Hey, this is my friend, and they start to meet people. Next thing you know, they're having, they're sharing that, selling it, doing whatever. But that's brought into our community. And it's like if we were to, kind of band together more and keep that out, we wouldn't have that in our community. But that's a real epidemic hitting all of America, especially Indian country. I know in our region, my res here, we've lost a couple young men. One was an ex-student of mine, good young man, real respectful. And he went down that road, and he didn't have the opportunity as a lot of our older individuals have, even some of our leaders, which is to kind of go down that bad road, learn, grow, turn it around, and then become an asset to our people. He didn't have that opportunity. He was young, and that was that. And it's terrible to see, but it's something that we could help prevent if we work together, I guess, and kept that out.
Well, I think that I'm for one that like you want to do that, okay, but don't encourage somebody else to do it. Don't be giving it to somebody else. What you do for yourself, you do for yourself. That's all right. Mm-hmm. But don't be handing it to somebody that don't have the wherewithal to say, because most people think of it as cool, and it's not. Because like you said, we've seen all these deaths happening around our communities, and it's a lot of the times because somebody, like you said, introduced it. Here, try this. Like I said, you want to do it, go ahead, you do it. But don't pass it around. Don't encourage somebody else to do it, because it brings our community down. And we've seen so much change within our community, like in a sense, like I was saying, we don't care for each other like we once did. When something like that would happen, people would come, somebody die, everybody would go to their house. How can we help? What can we, bring something, because, people like that, you got to eat, you got to drink something, I know you're feeling bad, but you still got to do this. You got to keep your strength up. We don't do that no more. We don't go see nobody when somebody in the family dies. We don't go over there and say, how can we help? What can we do? We're losing that humanity that we've always had, that always made us strong. That's what kept us, why we're here today, because we would come together and we would help each other. And today we see that not happening. And to me, it's scary, because sometimes I think people only care about themselves, that if they could sell the reservation, they would do it if it made them good. And that to me, that's very scary. That's where, because we're not taking the time to, even sometimes when I know people know each other and they still don't help one another. Where, a long time ago, somebody knew something. Oh, I know how to frame. Okay, can you come and help me? Oh, yeah, I'll come and help you. And somebody might know how to do a roof. Well, I'll come and help you do that. And we just always helped each other out, I know, like, my mother, where I live now, there was an old house there, and it burned down. And, my mom was a little girl. Well, her godfather, he knew how to build houses, and he built a house over there at the bridge. We call it the bridge house. And he told my grandfather, because I was his compadre, he says, "You go live in that house. I don't want to see my goddaughter. You guys got." So he even signed the paper over, signed it over, and said, "Here, I give it to you guys." I mean, wow, that's huge. That you build this house, and I don't want my goddaughter. Here you go. I mean, that's. I mean, I can't imagine that happening today.
Yeah, it's giving a house over.
Yeah, and
trying to sell it or get something out of it.
And but that's how we were. That, like I said, we took care of each other. Like I can remember too, like when somebody died like that, we're gonna go kill a cow, so we have meat. Of course, today nobody at our reservation has cattle anymore. It's that but when they did, that was the first thing we'll kill a cow so that we can help out.
Yeah.
And
that used to be the thing for a while. Like, it was kind of like, if you hear that vroom vroom, it was like you knew you were on a res because of the cattle guard. Yeah. Every res had a cattle guard. I think ours, they've actually taken them out, some of them out, and cemented over, so there's no cattle guard. It's gonna be crazy. The next generation won't even know what a cattle guard is or anything about it. But yeah, the late Tom Hyde, when he was around, when we lost my brother, he came and donated a cow for the anniversary and some of the ceremonies that were taking place, and it was just a really kind gesture. It was taking care of another family like that. And I remember when we lost my brother, I was just a young guy. I was like 10, 11 or something, and And I remember people from the community coming in to help like that, whether it was to help dig or sing or cook and just like donate food and things like that. And I remember as a kid just thinking like, man, that's so cool, that the people come and help like that. And my parents were really going through it, and people came over and sat with them and brought food and brought things, and just spent time with them throughout the week and really throughout that whole year. And that was something that I think we get away from too, where our population has increased so much, where I know most residents have tripled in population in the last 25, 30 years. So because our population's tripled, that means there's going to be 2 or 3 times as many funerals and 2 or 3 as many times everything, really. And I think what happens is sometimes we forget to do some of those old school things because we are having to go to so many funerals. We are having to do so much of that we forget that it's not just that day or that week. You got to check in on those people throughout the year leading up to that anniversary and beyond, and kind of have that empathy for one another. Someone's angry or they're complaining or they're having a bad day. It may not be that they're upset with you. They just might be having a hard day because they're going through something. Grow that empathy and kind of remember. And I think like you were talking about earlier with the painting of the face, the hair cutting, those are very powerful symbols. And when you see that and you know what that means, you stop yourself in your tracks, and it allows you to have that empathy and that understanding. And I see a lot of power in that for sure. But I remember as a kid seeing that. And some of those guys now are older. They were young and now they're older. One of those gentlemen, Chuka Pingleton, I remember he was there helping a lot in that time, and he was a young man then. And now he's older, he's an elder. Hey, but he's one of our elders in this community and helps get a lot of things done. I know recently they had a class, and they asked him to come in and yourself and some other leaders in our areas to come talk about the grave digging tradition, and the funerary traditions we have, and trying to make sure we put our people away in a good way. And when I saw his name on there, I thought that's really cool because, he came even when I was a kid. He was coming. He was a young guy, and my brother does that. I'm not a digger myself. I'll get in there once in a while, but I stick to the singing most of the time. But my brother, he does that, and but there's people in our community who do these things, that come to help, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I know that not every area is strong in each one of those areas. There's whether it be cooking or digging or singing or whatever. And we have to rely on other communities to come in and to help us out. And that's what keeps really all of us strong together as a nation and beyond.
Well, like you said, like when I was a boy, Dora Tisem was a cook. And she would come to Campo, Manzanita, she was known as a cook. So, like you're saying, people, they'd contact her and say, can you come and do this with us? And she'd always, say yes. Now our communities are, they are growing tremendously. And but then now, too, we fight over enrollment. It puts literally family against family. And even brothers and sisters, at my reservation, we don't count all of Kumeyaay blood. We only count Campo. And we've had a lot of intermarriage. And it's like, it don't make sense. And I tell people, I said, if you go back to our traditional way, this is how they handled it. So when a man married, well, that woman went to his tribe. They didn't say, oh, well, hey, your kids, they're not full of this. No, they didn't look at it like that. You married into that family, you're now that. And that's why, even in the language, you learned your father's language. Like I remember one time I was talking to Delia, and she was telling me, I would teach you Indian, but, I didn't learn your guys' dialect. I learned my dad's because her dad was from here. Mother was from Campo. She said, my brother did, though. He knew both really well. And she was saying that, I wish that, but that's how they kept them strong like that. And that's why they would say sister tribe. Well, that's my sister's tribe over there, because that's where she's from now, and so, there's just a lot of that history that, like I said, so they didn't, when they had kids, well, their kids were right from there, from the father's side. They didn't say, well, technically, the mother didn't come from here. They didn't look at it like that.
Yeah.
The one thing that they did do, though, was they would take them back home. So the wives would go back to their reservation and be buried, and so there was not this, and then too, we had these over there in Hakamba, they call it Tabletop Mountain, but there's an Indian word for it. I don't know it. And that mountain there was used for intermarriage. And what they would do is they would have this huge ceremony, and they would call all the neighboring tribes, and even out as far as Hopi and Toda Altam people, and then of course Kokapa, even Luceños, because they knew that we couldn't keep marrying within with that, So they would have this huge thing, because that mountain's really big and flat, and they'd have these things where they would bring the young people to marry off. And like I said, the women would go with them, and and that's how they kept, So they didn't, look at it necessarily like, okay, you're not full Luceño now because your mother comes from over there. They didn't, and we didn't look at that like that either, And you're part of this. You're our family now, And so they didn't have to look at, like today where we're, for instance, I know, like in my reservation, the first time it happened was with Rosie Pinto, they said, because she married a non-Indian. And our grandfather at the time said, well, where's she going to go? She's going to have to be able to, this is her, So that was the first time where they were allowing the women to bring in men, because they were married non-Indian. And so it became like that ever since. But that didn't diminish that she's not my relative anymore, or if she would have had kids, that they would not be my relative. Yeah, they would be my relative still, And that's the one thing. Like I always remember my grandma used to say, that's my grandson. No matter what he is, bad or good, he's still my grandson. There's things he does that I don't like, but he's still my relative. He's still my family, And so you weren't shunned because, maybe you were the town drunk or what do you call it? You didn't look at, too. When we look at it too, like I remember, like there would be people drunk, but you know what? They'd come and they'd rake and they would do different things in the yard, and they didn't just I'm not worried about nothing. No, they would do things, and that's why, one thing we always say is we never had homeless.
Yeah.
Because, somebody would take them in. They'd stay a week over here, a week over there, but we never had homeless because we'd always take care of our people, and.
My mom used to say, when I was a little kid, I forgot who it was, but it seemed like he used to go to every res, and there would be like a few guys there that were like, really drinkers, or real drunk, and the drunks or whatever, And she'd always say, you'd always treat those guys with a lot of respect. She'd say, because those are the guys that'll probably be burying you one day, those kinds of people. They're the ones that show up and, do a lot of that stuff. And it was kind of true, because as I got older, going to funerals and stuff, you would see a lot of those guys in there, digging, and they'd be drinking throughout or whatever. And you would never see it when the funeral came, they'd go under a tree somewhere, or they'd get, all the cans out of it, clean it up, and it was all decent.
Yeah.
But she would tell me, like, well, those people, a lot of times they have, they have really big hearts, and they lose someone, they're really emotional, and they just drink through that, but they're still there to go dig or to help or pick up trash, or, you can depend on those people to really have big hearts to help like that. And I was glad she told me that when I was younger, because, like, growing up, I always kept that mindset dealing with people in different reservations, that because I never drank, until my late 20s. I was getting married. I had my first drink, and then I drank a while and stopped. So I didn't really go to that as much. I had a couple wild weekends here and there, but no, just seeing that in our communities, to realize that everybody can help in some way, and everybody has like a place or a piece of what we are as a community. And I think that's like a huge part of the lesson, to not step over your people and just be like, we're all here together. Let's enjoy it, and help out where we can.
Well, and the one thing too is that when people were mad at each other. Something like this happens in the community, they'd lay that to the side. We got to do this now. We got to make sure this gets done. And after it was over, they go back to hating each other. Oh, okay, but they knew when something happens here, we got to lay that to the side, and we got to do for our people. The one thing that our people were always is about sacrifice. We always sacrifice for each other, where we don't see that as much anymore. And, and I look at it sometimes too, that sometimes it's not their fault because they don't know. No, but, like when I look at my reservation, a lot of people came back. And so they didn't grow up there knowing these things, and so they don't know. And so it's not their fault. But once you start to learn and you see and you're not doing, then it becomes your fault. Because you're not participating in this community. All you're doing is taking. It's all about, like in our creation story, I always tell that, the first thing that the Creator did was give us tobacco from his heart and said, here, use this to pray with. So what he was showing us how to give first. Because in return, who we were going to pray back, we were going to pray to him. So it was going to come back to him. But that's about what giving is. You give, it'll come back to you. That's one of the first lessons that in our creation story, that's the first lesson that he's giving us. Give, because it'll come back. And so when you don't know your creation story, which a lot of people don't know, well, then it becomes, again, like I said, not their fault. It's just that we have to start putting it out there. And that's right now, Barona's working on that, trying to put a creation story together. And there's different versions of it, certain things. But again, a lot of it's all about how to be, our morals and our values and our ceremonies that come out of the story, all those things that have been dormant, that we need to start bringing back. Of course, some of the things, I was told, reason why we don't have a lot of medicine men no more was that my Uncle Tony said that he lived with our grandfather. His name was Peon, and he was a healer with his hands. And he said that one day that those medicine men knew each other from the different reservations, and they got together and they said, we're going to burn all this because everybody's changing. They're changing in their ways. This stuff is too powerful. They don't know how to handle it. And what they were talking about is because the initiation stopped. And the initiation was to give you your power. And when we stopped doing that, they were saying the young people don't have that power to be able to handle some of this stuff. So we're going to burn it all. And that's what he did. He said, so one day he used to have this little house. He said that, that made out of brush. And he said, we're going to go out there and we're going to burn all this stuff. And he said all his sacred things he had was all in there, and he lit it on fire and they burned it. And he was asking him, why were you doing that? And he said, because we had all said we were going to do this because nobody's going through the initiations anymore, and they don't have the protection like they would get if they went through this. And that's why there's a lot of old photos of the lot of dances that are being done at San Isabel. And every year it becomes less and less. And they were saying because no men were going through the initiation, and all there were old men. And once they died out, that died out because they, and one of the things that they did right in front of the public, like when they'd had fiestas, they would have this big bonfire and they would go out there and stomp it out, and they wouldn't get burned. Their regalia didn't get burned. And it was saying because they had this power. And, and it would amaze the white people. They're like, oh my God, look at them. And they'd be in there stomping it out. Another one was when, I can't remember his name, but he was a La Chapa. And he has this golden eagle, and it's huge. They show a picture of it. It's huge like that. And he has it. He's holding it. And he says, I'm going to show you people what power I have. He's telling that to to the crowd. Like I said, there's white people there. And he looked at that eagle and he blew on it. And its head fell over and it died. And he said, look, it's dead. Look. And he showed the people, look, it's dead. Now watch. And he turned around and grabbed that eagle and he blew on it again 3 times and his head came back up. And he said, I have real power. I'm not like that, like another tribe I won't mention, where they take the rib and they crush it and it goes through the heart and that's how it dies. And what he was saying, I'm showing you what power I have. I don't have to do that. I could do it with just my breath. And so, like I said, it falls over. He shows everybody he's dead, and then he brings it back to life. That's what I have is real power. It's not like smoke and mirrors, I guess you could say, but he's telling the people. And, and they take that eagle, and they explain it all. Like he takes it because they're going to use it. They're going to use the feathers to make one of those sashes, like, with those what they wore and that eagle skirt. And they took that eagle and they treated it like a human. They sang over it, they buried it, and and they used to say, like, when they would go get eagles, they'd get young ones, and they would raise them. And every morning you had to get up and feed it and sing and dance for the eagle. And they said the eagle would know when it was its time. Like they knew they were going to get sacrificed. Like they'd be crying, they'd be calling out because they knew their time was coming. I mean, so just that think of that power and the how we were so in tune with nature and all these different things that how we, and one of the things that Ori said, she's a geologist, and she said here in this area there was a 250-year drought. But we didn't leave. We withstood it. And that was so amazing, she was saying, because most people end up leaving because they're looking for water. Of course, then, that's why when you look at our story of our creation, that's why we say Maiha, because the creator, his name was Tuchopai, no Miyokomut, and he told him, I'm going to change my name to Maiha. When you need rain, call me. Because we know we're in an area here where we don't get much rain. So that was always a reminder that, hey, we're going to need water. We can't forget our Creator. We must call upon Him. So, I mean, man, that's geez, that's huge. That's great thinking. But as we get away from this stuff, now we look and we're like, hey, we need rain. We need water. Look at the reservoirs drying up because we're not calling on Him. We're not using that. We're not saying come, which we were always told that, that's why. It's when we look at our people and just how remarkable they were, and, I always tell people, science is just kind of catching up to our spirituality. Because we believed everything had a spirit to it. You just didn't go and take. You had to give thanks to it, and you had to give it, pay homage to it, and tell it what you're going to use it for. I got a paper that I can't think of his name. He's a white man, and he was somewhat an amateur anthropologist. He lived in Mesa Grande, and he was real friendly with the Indians up there, and he heard that there was going to be a Karuk ceremony. And over there, they weren't doing them no more. So he wanted to record it. And somebody had told him, and he comes, and it was in Weiapai. And here comes this white man, and everybody's looking at him. And they send somebody to go ask him, what are you doing here? Because they kept this thing quiet because they were afraid of white people would break it up. And he said, I wanted to come to see this. And they told him, okay, you're, and he talked about, Matawer, who was a medicine man in Mesa Grande. They knew who he was over here. And they said, oh, okay, we know who he is. We'll let you stay. Because he said, I participate with them. They took me in as a brother. And so they knew who, all these people he was talking, they knew him. And they said, okay, you could stay here. but you can't write about it and you can't take pictures. But he does both. And it's good because it kind of gave us an insight to what was happening. And one of the things he says is that all of a sudden out of the desert come these Quetzons. And he says, like our people, he's kind of saying like, we're kind of all heavy set, but they come up and they're like, strong, in shape, like.
The ones that can make it to the desert at that
time. And he's saying that they're like sinew, they're just strong, like, and he talks about, there's a lady that comes from Conejos, and she must be like 300 pounds. It's the biggest woman I ever seen. So anyways, they come in, and what it was is they asked them to come because, again, the family's not supposed to do things, so they're having somebody else come and do some of the things. So first thing that they do, they say, is that they're going to go get the wood to make the house. And the only thing they take with them is a gourd rattle. And he said, because they're going to go and they're going to sing and ask these things to sacrifice themselves so we can have this. And so they go out and they already have the brush already set aside for the roof and stuff, but they need to go get the, like the pillars. And so, like I said, all they take is a gourd rattle because they're going to, sing and ask that, what we're going to use it for. So, I mean, today we don't ask for nothing. We just take, right? We're just, we just think that that's just the way things are today. But again, those things have spirit. Everything has a spirit to it. So, that's, like I said, so when you're looking at those people, they were so much in tune to these things that they showed that, that somebody lighting a piece of weed, and they have these electrodes hooked to it. And they're saying that when they're burning, it's doing this because it's feeling. And they were like, they didn't, well, that's why our people said everything has a spirit. It's alive. Mm-hmm. Again, it's about that a sacrifice. And, so everything around us is always sacrificing. And that's what we need to learn how to do ourselves, is how to sacrifice.
Anthony Pico, our chairman here, who's been chairman for a long time. Now John's our chairman, but when I was growing up, it was always Pumpkin. Years ago, you were there, I don't know, it was probably about 6-7 years ago, maybe. Saquon they got all the singers together. We were all there singing and talk about it or whatever. And he got up and spoke. And one of the things he said that I thought was pretty cool is he said that out of all the things, learning songs or going around or whatever, as a younger guy before he got into politics, what he felt like he had really learned was how to help the people, how to give.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said he learned how to, because he's like, you do that long enough, you wind up in pretty much every community, singing for every family, and you learn how to help them. And you might show up and there might be people who don't like you or you don't like them, but you're there to help.
Yeah.
And you're giving, and you just kind of learn how to serve your people. And he was saying that translated for him going into politics and being a chairman, because you do put, any kind of hard feelings you might have towards another family, away, because you want the betterment of the people as a whole. And he said he had learned that from Bird. And I thought that was pretty powerful, idea and concept. And I could totally relate and understand that, because you really do sing for everybody at some point, or go there to try to help everybody at some point. And people come and help you when it's your turn. It seems like the late Leroy Elliott used to get up and always say that too, where he'd kind of point to the front row and say, we all have to sit there, meaning that we will all have to lose somebody, and we're all going to have to take that trip, that journey. We're all going to have to pass on. And these basic, bare things kind of teach us how to be as individuals, and how to be as individuals in our community where we are of service. Do you feel that same way? You feel like that kind of guided you?
Exactly. One time I was talking to Leroy, and I was saying, hey, Leroy, let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like not going? And he looks at me and he's just like, oh, yeah. But I would never say nothing. I said, yeah, sometimes I don't feel like going. But I said, but once I get there and I forget all about that. And I said, but there's times where I felt like I don't feel like going today, I'm tired, but I go. And I said, but then when I get there, that all disappears. And he says, you know what, Junior? He goes, I felt like that many times where I don't feel like going. But what he said, I know it's the right thing to do. So that's what and he said, then too, he said, once I got there, it all went away. But that's, again, we're just like everybody else. So there is times where, you feel like you don't want to go, but you got to do the right thing. That's what it's all about. That, again, you're helping somebody. And we know how people feel so grateful for it. Thank you so much, and that, for me, that goes a long ways. That, when they tell me that, I feel, thank you. You make me feel good when you say that, even though I come here to help you, but you're showing that appreciation of it. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, everybody has a role. Everybody has a role. And if they just came there and do it, things would go by so smoothly and easy, 'cause just like you were saying, how we had that meeting about the grave diggers. Well, in Campo, 2 weeks before that, there was a funeral, and there was no grave diggers. And at the last moment, they're calling Bobo, can you come up? So he brings Michael Ruel, and he calls Ben, and they finally get a couple of people to do it. And what it was, they said, well, we called Rich. Well, Rich was out of town.
Yeah. And
so, we were saying the reason why we're having this is that nobody should be asking you to come. You should just do this. Because this is your community. You're helping out, because what we're saying is nobody's taking their kids there, to show them, hey, like I said, like I remember, like we had graveyard cleaning. My dad would say, hey, we got to go up there. We got to go clean grave. We would go to Manzanita, we'd go to Ocampo, and we'd go to Hamul. Those are the places that we would go help graveyard cleaning. He'd say, we got to go over here. He was showing me, this is what this is what we're supposed to do. This is, because they come up here and they help us. We got to go down there and help them at their time. And today, like I said, T-Sam.
Is that Ted?
Ted, yeah.
Yeah.
He and what he said there was so profound. He said, when I was a young man, I could take that jackhammer easy. Well, I'm not that young man no more. I can't do it. I can't, I need help. Mm-hmm. And I needed to start teaching some of you young people how to do this. Because, and I was telling them, like, in our area, we're coming to certain parts of our area where you're going to need a jackhammer. We're starting to find out.
Yeah.
Where before it was never like that. So our grave diggers, if that we were never used to using a jackhammer because we've always had soft sand, and our whole thing was making sure that it didn't cave in. But now we came to a couple of places where it was really hard. They were saying that we might have to get a jackhammer. But again, you got to have people know how to use it. And that's what Ted was saying, I need to teach young people how to do this. And I said, the one thing that we always had pride in the things that we did. When somebody came to our reservation, we took care of them because hey, you came here, we take pride that we treated you right. Mm-hmm. That we made sure that, we have pride in our reservation, but in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're the toughest, or we're this or that. That's not nothing to be proud of. Our pride should be that, hey, people come here, we know we get taken care of. Yeah. That they make sure we have something to drink, something to eat. That's real pride. That's pride in taking that. This is what our community does. Again, the long time ago when they would have fiestas, you were invited. And so when we'd have fiesta, they say we would invite Viejas, we'd invite Manzanita, La Posta, and Hamul. And when you guys, when they would come, we'd have to have a place for them to camp, firewood, water, because at that time, there was no electricity and stuff. So if they're horses, we had to make sure we had feed for them. So we took care of them because we were inviting them to come and celebrate with us. So we had to take care of them, make sure that they had, and same thing down here, when they would have it over here, same thing, they would take care of them because we had pride that you come to our reservation, we're going to make sure you're taken care of. Mm-hmm. Now that, wow, what happened? How did we lose that, But that's when things were more community, we're a community. And the one thing that my parents always instilled in us was that this is your community. What are you doing to make it a good community? So, ever since we were little kids, they would take us to the tribal meetings and say, because someday you're going to be sitting here and you got to know how it goes, how it works. We used to sit there like, I don't want to go, and then they started feeding at our meetings, and boy, I like to go there. Because after the meeting, they would have a meal.
Yeah.
And we had a cook. We actually had a cook that his name was Hardy Jones, and he was married to a tribal member. And he'd do all our cooking. We would have Christmas dinners, we'd have Thanksgiving dinners, and he would be the one out of cooking, and the people would come and eat together. We haven't done that. Now people are like coming there and they're give me a to-go box. I'm gonna go. Not even stay.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I've seen people show up. Hey, it's good to see you. Go straight to the to-go box and then leave. Yeah. Because it's COVID now. They have the boxes. And it's like I don't even think they came with this. Like if it was a doings or a funeral. Like I don't even think they went to that. They just went and got their box and left. Which I don't even think it would at least get over there and shake the hand of the family or somebody. But I've seen that. I've seen that.
Like we said when we did our gathering, we would have lunch, for people that got there early. Our own people were coming and taking it all and going back home.
Hey,
and or two, they would come and get the shirts. Uh-huh. Wouldn't stay for the gathering, but wanted the shirt. And and finally we started saying no. They got to be here to sign it. And then they can have it.
Yeah.
Because they were coming there, well, this person needs a shirt, this and that. 20 people. One person's come for 20 people to take 20 shirts. And it's like, we do this for people that are coming here, that they have a memory when they go home.
Yeah. It's rough. I know one time I went to a gathering and I said, can you sing, in a little bit? Oh, yeah, sure. So we were kind of waiting around for our shirt and eat or something. But the way the scheduling was, they said, okay, if you could sing now. So we got up and we sang for, half hour or something. But I swear, right when we started singing, 2 songs in, I seen that line go up. I was like, whatever. But by the time we got done, we got up and they were like, oh, there's no more shirts and we're out of food. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
But it happens that way. But it is nice to get a shirt. So anybody out there organizing stuff, put some shirts aside for some people, man. I used to do that with Peon. Because, we'd have people come in and we'd get all the shirts out. And they'd all be gone by the time the evening came.
Yeah.
And then all the Peon players that come rolling in the evening time, ready to play. And I always felt bad they never got shirts. So I'd always splice the shirts. I'd say, let's put some aside and give them to the Peon players and they come rolling in.
We should have done that because we never, like I said, by a certain time they're gone.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, forget the shirts. That's such a big expense anyway.
Make your own shirts.
Yeah, but
Peon now is a big crowd. I want to say sometimes bigger than the daily gathering. You get a big crowd rolling in. I know back when I was first playing, I had to be mid '90s or something like that. In this community, there was only one active player, and that was John. John was a young guy then, and he started a team with myself and Parker, Sammy, and Adam, and we were the young guys, and Josh Craddock. And anyways, he got us playing. Parker was our driver, and us four would play. And we went everywhere. He had a girls team he started, but we would go around, and it was always the same 3-4 teams in the boys category or division. In the girls, there's usually 1, maybe 2 teams, Yeah. And then the men's, there was a lot of old guys that are they're all gone now, but there was only not a lot of teams. You were playing. You were well established. You and Steve were already jamming out, playing together. There wasn't a lot of Peon back then, though. It seems like you guys were the ones who kind of got this generation that plays now. The men now that play, it seemed like they all came through yourself, through John.
Yeah.
Through, I guess up north, the northern areas must have been like the Huacheños, I guess. But only a few guys. It seemed like
King, they were teaching young men too at that time. Because like I remember like Bobo and Wiley were the first ones that up in San Isabel. They were doing the game there, and Joe, the late Joe Huacheño, was in charge of it. And they came and they had their $100. Joe, no, this is not kids. This is men's, And it's like, Joe, there's they got the money. Let them just play. Well, he said, okay, we'll let them in. They were out really quick. But, at that time there was no boys teams, like that they wanted to play, and I remember Davey brought him over. He said, I want you to teach my boys how to play, and I was like, okay. So I was sitting there, and I'd put the peons there, and I'd ask, okay, which is the best shot that you could get the most? And it took them a while. Finally, they learned it, and I for me too. When I first played peon, Tony gave me a tape, and he said, learn these songs. And then he sat down with me and Leroy, and he goes, this is the shots. You hear it one time. The first game I played was me, Leroy, and Tony and Dave Toller. Okay. And we played in Weiapai, because that's why he's going to have a gathering there. And he told us, I want you guys to play. So, I learned the songs, I was ready for that. But I did not know the shots, because he told us one time, and I could not get it. I would sit there and we'd make Dave shoot first. Dave shoot, because we didn't know, what to shoot. Fun way. Yeah, we knew that. But in the middle, Dave, go ahead and shoot. And so, he'd shoot. And then one day I was sitting over there with one of Jose's sons, David. I think it was David. No, it was the younger one. And he's the one, I was sitting there behind them. They were playing, and I said, I don't know the shots. And he's sitting there, watch me. Then he goes, so when they would shoot, he said, okay, this is what we're shooting. This is what we're saying. And I was like, oh, and it was so simple, once you got it, like, oh. But I remember I was like, well, and one thing that Tony always used to say is that we only shoot the white bone. We don't shoot the black bone. And and now that I, because he was telling us, he said, look, because, it's kind of confusing in the sense that when you're saying huera is slang for white. Mm-hmm. But it really came down to the fingers. So cause like he was saying, we only shoot the white bone. So when you were shooting a huera chico, that's where your fingers were like this. Huera chico. So you're saying the whites are out. Okay. That's why he said, you got to hold your hand out there. Hold it out there like a man, he used to tell us. Don't be go shooting and bringing it back like that. He said, hold it out there like a man. But he was saying, because then I was like, well, huera means white. And then when I said, okay, so that's what he's saying, all right, that the whites are out. You're shooting a chico or you're shooting a grande. You're saying all the whites are out. Because he said, yeah, you never shoot the black bone. But I remember when we were teaching, we were saying when you're saying huera, you're talking about the black bone. But really that wasn't the truth of it. It was really, you're only shooting the white bone. And your fingers are the ones that are really showing it. Like when you're huera chico, you're saying the whites are out. Meta chico, you're saying they're out. Or meta, you're saying they're in, right? Meta. So you're pointing one finger like that and you're saying they're coming together. And when you're saying huera, you're saying they're the outs. And I was like, oh, man, because when I was asking one Mexican guy, when I was showing him the shot, he goes, oh, that don't make no sense.
I always hear that from people.
Like that. And then, but then, like I said, when you're really putting your fingers, you're really showing, we are shooting the white bones. We're just saying they're out. It really meant, there's always been this controversies. What are you saying or what are you pointing? And it really is the pointing. It's not with the words, because the pointing is really saying what it is. You're saying they're out. And so that's now we have a lot of kids that we need to go back and start telling them, it's about the fingers and it's about the pointing. And when you really look at it, that's how the northern tribes play. It's all about the fingers, they're like that, they're out, that's how they shoot it.
Yeah, they gesture a lot with that, yeah.
It's like that.
A lot of stuff on
that. So, and a lot of places I played out there, like I played in Victoria Island in Canada. We were there for a language thing. There was not only Kumeyaay, but there was some Liceños and Kupa, and we all went up there together, and they were having like this big language thing. Well, one of the girls said, "Hey, they're having a hand game. You guys want to come see it?" And we're like, "Yeah, we play hand games too." So we go over there, and they said, well, "You guys want to play?" And we're like, "Yeah, we'll play. We don't know your shots," so and they were like throwing us in, and they're all playing with banging stuff, and we played like we played. We sang, and one of the old guys came over. He goes, "I was watching you guys." He goes, "That's how we used to play. We didn't play with drums or rattles or nothing. Like we sang."
Yeah.
He said, "That's how it used to be played a long time ago." And I said, "Well, why did it change?" And that's when he explained to me. He said that what happens was the drunks would get there, and they had to drown them out. And he said, so we started using drums and rattles and stuff like that to drown out the drunks. And over there, right at 2:00, it ended. They didn't play until And he said, because the bars are closing and they're going to come. So we close it down at 2:00. We'll come back in the morning, in the afternoon. Let's finish it. And there was like minimum 8 people on a team, and there was 32 teams. So that place was packed.
It was rocking. I imagine like that had to take a long. They don't do brackets. They just
they did. It was the double elimination.
Oh my god!
And so it was, and because Ranger, it was under this tarp, and it was just so loud in there.
Yeah.
And then they used 11 sticks, and I told him down our way we used 15. He goes, "We used to use more too." But it was taking too long, and so we shortened it. We shortened the sticks on it. So that's why we only play with 11 now. I was like, wow, so.
I seen that in Utah. I went out to Fort Duquesne. They have their 4th of July powwow. We were just passing through, actually. And we went and stayed there, stayed the night, camped out, watched the powwow. And then we were going to get ready to go to bed. The powwow's over. It's late, and I could hear singing. I thought there were 49, and I was like, that don't sound like they're drunk. That sounds like something going on. So I went over and I scoped it out. Then I went back and got my kids up because they were all learning how to play Peon at that time. And I said, I want you guys to see how they do their hand games. And we sat there and watched them for a few hours. But what I liked was the energy they had. It was like kind of reminded me like how we do ours the same. They really had that energy. And then it made me think too, like when people come down to our powwows down here, we're over there playing Peon all night. Like they're camped out. They must probably hear us singing all night, going for it like at 3 a.m. or whatever. Playing all night like that. But it's cool that we have that throughout all North America, different versions of the hand games like that.
Well, I seen them play it too, like in the Lummies. I've sat there and watched them play. And like you said, it's we were there with one of the Lummy guys, and he said, one time they sing the same song over and over and over. They don't change it. And he said there was these drunks. They were just taking teams out left and right. And it was a song that they made right there about Lucky Log or a beer.
Yeah.
Oh, Lucky Log.
Oh, man. Coming to Peon games near all of you.
And they ended up winning the whole tournament.
Oh, man. Lucky Logger.
Well, yeah, Lucky Logger song.
Well, I played a team one time, and we were playing late in the night, and they had gone through a bunch of teams, and by the time we got to playing, we were a few games in. And they were playing really good. They were kind of whipping us. And then out of nowhere, they just seemed like they kind of ran out of juice or something. Come to find out, they were drinking. And by the time it got to us, they kind of ran out. And so they just got tired. They were trying to keep it going, but they were like ready to go to sleep. So I think if they had like one more 6-pack, they would have won the whole tournament. But that was years ago. Like nowadays, I don't really ever see anybody drinking and playing around.
Well, the only ones that were still drinking a little bit was the Salgados. When the old man was alive, he liked to nip it. But they, a lot of them, they felt that was their luck too, I guess,
Well, I know it coats the throat. It does help you sing, and I know if you're a shy person, you get a little in you. I guess that would help you really be outgoing while you play and stuff like that. But one thing I had liked from when I first started playing to now is that like there were a lot more differences. It seemed like regionally, like you could tell where a team came from by the way they played, the songs they sang, things like that. And now everyone kind of plays the same and sings a lot of the same songs and whatnot. It's cool too because I think it allows someone who's just starting out a little bit more comfort and ease to learn because it's kind of the same. I know when I was learning my shots, I was thinking about this and you're saying that is that like John told us we would say tirado con uno or we would say con dos, like you talk about the fingers. Yeah. We'd have to always throw con uno, con dos. And so I just assumed that's how everybody played. So I remember when I went around that first year, we were playing around all the tournaments. I was saying all of that, and some of the Koimis are looking at me like, "What is that? What are you doing with that?" And John said, "Well, that's how I learned. That's how you're supposed to do it, but nobody does that anymore, pretty much,
Yeah.
Well, why'd you teach us that? I was thinking because that made my shots harder to learn. But looking back, it might have made it kind of easier because I would remember. Even if I said the shot wrong, if I said con dos and had two fingers, I think the Koimi would know what I was trying to shoot. So that kind of helped around that.
Yeah, like I remember with Saquon when they had a game over there in the back. That's when they only had the bingo hall. Mm-hmm. And actually a lot of people from Verona came. Yeah. They all used to play Peone over there. I don't know what happened, why they all stopped, but they came down and, I got off work and I went back there. They're all playing back there. And there was a lot of people from Verona all playing. And one time they used to do these buses, and we caught one. We went to Saboba to go play bingo, and one of Steve's great aunts, there, she's like to play. I remember on the way up we were singing Peone songs. On the way back home we were singing Peone songs. They then like all of a sudden nobody plays there hardly anymore. Where they're older people, I guess, that all used to play. I remember going to my first tournament was there in Verona. I was at a meeting at BIA meeting. It was for budgets, and they were all talking about, hey, they're going to have games over there in Verona. You going to go? I go, I don't know. I think I'll go check it out then. I remember going over there and seeing that. That's the first time I seen King playing. He had his shirt open. He always had his shirt open, And they were sitting there all playing. And that, that's when they said, they played with their own money. They didn't play, with a pot like today. And sitting there watching them all playing. And my dad always talked about, because he grew up over there in Warner's, because he got adopted out. And he always talked about the Sagados. He said, "Yeah, they're big Peon players." He said they're really good. They're champions. He used to always say they're champion players. And like I said, I got into when Tony said, learn this. And but there was a lot of when I started teaching the kids, there was a lot of elders that knew the songs, but they never said anything. Yeah. And I think about it, like Old Man Domingo, he used to be a big Peon player. And my step-grandfather, he was a thing. It was a Harvey thing. And his father was that, they called him Cinco, but what was his name? But he played with Sam Brown all the time. Okay. And so sometimes when he didn't play with Sam, he would play with his sons. And they all knew songs, and I'm like, they never talked about it. Never like, hey, you want to learn these songs, Peon songs. And I think, God, I wish I knew when I was a lot younger, because I could have been asking them all about, hey, can teach me a song,
I think it had to be prevalent, like in probably the 30s and 40s or something, real strong everywhere. Because when I first started singing or playing around, our first team. I thought it was pretty alien in this community. I never really seen much of it. Like I said, John was the only one kind of actively playing. But it seemed like he was playing out in the desert in different far areas. But when we got the team together, the youth team, it seemed like, everybody's like elders of the family knew what we were doing. And like there was a lot of people in our community that traveled with us. They, we were going to Morongo next week. All right, we'll be there. And we got there, and it was like, my Uncle Bunny, Robert Brown, he went to like every tournament we went to that first year and a half. There was a bunch of people that traveled with us, and they were like, yeah, we remember this when we were little kids. Like they didn't play, they didn't know how to play, but a lot of them remembered some of the songs and things like that. And then my mom, like I remember I was learning, and actually the way we had started was my late aunt Marinita. She wanted to play, and so she had said, "Well, I'm going to get my sisters, and we're going to get a team together." So my mom said, "All right, let's go play." So my mom, Aunt Marinita, and then Aunt Vera Brown and Abby. She was like she was staying with her. They were going to get a team together. So John's there trying to show him this and that. Meanwhile, it was like me, Josh, and Shane and Adam and Sammy Parker. We're all in there kind of goofing around, teasing these ladies. You guys ain't going to get it. What ended up happening is we actually learned Peon and started playing. They never actually went and played. But it was weird because they already knew a lot of the songs. So when John was like starting to go into the songs, I remember like my mom was like, "Oh, we want to sing a Walelu Wiona." She started like singing it a little bit, and I remember thinking like I never really knew my mom knew any of this stuff, but her uncle, the late John Felicio, used to be a Kwame, so she remembered some of that. And but yeah, a lot of people in our different areas like would remember some of that, or they would come out and watch us play as teenagers. And then when I hooked up with my lady, and we were in San Isabel, and I was gonna go play, and my wife was pregnant, and her grandma came and see me. She like chewed me out. She said, "You better not have my granddaughter around those Peon games, and you better not have your grandson or whoever your kid is that comes, my granddaughter, grandson, when it comes, you better not have them around the Peon games." And she was like really telling me about the protocols, you don't have that around. It was real serious and all this kind of stuff. And come to find out, her dad was a Peon player, and so she knew all of this stuff that she was telling me. And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool," because I never even knew that she knew anything about any of that stuff. And then she was telling me, some of the songs that she remembered and the things she remembered about that. But it's like you kind of never know who knows what, I guess,
Because like I said, those guys would be. They were like, they'd be singing right along with their grandparents. Like, I wish, I remember seeing it when we had a fiesta, and I think it was 72. And the women were playing, but they played during the day. And I remembered, they were playing against the Quetzons. And, I remember them going around there asking everybody, you got money to throw in, like people, I got $5, $10. And then the Quetzons, they were doing the same thing. And then when they played, people that were helping them stood behind them and over here. And I said, I will always never forget, because Cecilia Temple, she bet it. And my grandmother was playing, my great grandmother, and her. Adelaide, Christina, and George Prieto's mother, Ada. Ada Prieto. They were playing, and what's her name walked over there on the other side, and these guys got it and start yelling, "What are you doing? You bet it over here. You get whipped. You want to act like that? Like wow. Sitting there thinking, wow, I mean, they were chewing her out. You bet you need to stand over here. You don't belong over there. What do you do over there telling them what we're hiding? I mean, they were just like, I was like, I'll never forget that, watching that, And but it was during the day.
Yeah.
It was during the day. And then at night, that's when the men were playing. And I'll never forget, because there was a guy that came from, he was married to I think he was Kauai too, but I'm not sure. But I always remember he was this big man. He had overalls. And I ended up meeting him later on once I started playing, like I was telling him, I remember you when you came to Campo. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I came to Koime. They asked me to come to Koime." And I was like, I remember you. Because like I said, he looked like a big man, because I was a little kid, and I remember him having these overalls on. And, and at the end, he couldn't play no more too. He ended up getting sick, and, but I got to, meet him again, like I said, later in life, when I started playing. I was telling him, I remember. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I remember going out there." And it's just that, so like, like some people say, oh, the women didn't play. And I'm thinking, well, I seen it, women playing, but they played during the day. They didn't play at night. The men played at night. And it was just one game. It wasn't like, like today where we have, a lot of games going. It was just a one game. And I remember too, like when we had, when we first got into office, we had these barbecues, because I guess because we were, new council. And they invited Ralph and Joe to come play. And they had a Peon game there. And I think they told King to come because none of our people played. We were sitting there watching them play.
Yeah.
Because our people weren't playing it no more. And that's when, like I said, that's when Tony was having to gather, and he said, you guys need to learn. And I was like, okay. Well, because at first, like Leroy said, oh, we don't play Peon. That's a bad thing, because they play with medicine and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we don't play Peon, And then Tony came by, and that's when he said, no, you guys need to learn. And then, when I kind of learned, and sometimes how they do a mock game in Yuma, he used to say, you don't go over there and help them. I'm like, why? He goes, because there's people here that still do bad things. He used to tell us, like, no, when they ask you to, you tell them, no, you don't know how to play. And I was like,
scary.
Yeah. Like, I was like, okay. He goes, yeah, because, and he used to always say that, we don't have people to fix you anymore. We don't have people that can fix you anymore. So you got to be careful, So like down there, he said, they ask you, you say you don't know how to play. Don't. Of course, that's when there was still a lot of old people too, Like I remember going there, and that place would just be packed with old people in there. Like today, you see them too. It's just dwindling.
Yeah.
And it was. Well, I remember just going there and being at awe, like, oh my, like the dancing and the singing, and it was just like, man, it was so powerful. And then the crying, the all standing around that casket and just crying, and and one of the things Lori told us was that because they used to say that in Indian, come cry with me, get up, come cry with me, and he said that's because I would sit there and say all of a sudden they'd get up there and all be crying, but they said because they were telling people, get up, come cry with me, come help me, get through this. And he said they don't, he goes, like everywhere, everybody doesn't know the language anymore. And he says, so nobody's saying that, hey, come and cry with me. And, but like I said, I remember first going there and just being in awe of that. It was just so beautiful, that all the singing and the dancing and everybody, it was just, like I said, it was so beautiful. It was like, man, and that's what I tell the young boys, like, I remember when we had funerals and we didn't have singing, and and how it came back, and then like Tony Trujillo, he wants to learn. And I was telling Tony, I said, Tony, it's good. I want, just like how you went up to San Isabel and you start teaching the people over there, and now it's become part of them again. And I said that we want to see that Mesa Grande. We want to see that with all our reservations, that it becomes strong again. And I was telling Tony, I said, it took a long time for our people to get used to it again. I said, like when we'd go around, nobody would get up because they're like, what's going on? And I said, but now our people know. They know that, hey, it's getting midnight. We need to come inside because we're going to go around. And I said, so I've seen that change within my tribe where at first it seemed like it was foreign to now they embrace it. They know it, and because there's a lot of things like my parents would say, that's not our way. And my great grandmother would say, no, we do things like that. You just weren't here. You didn't see it because both my parents were taken away, put in foster homes. So they didn't see it. And that's what she would tell me. You guys didn't see this. You weren't here. But this is what we used to do all the time. We always sang, and, so, I remember like even too, like Kumeyaay, when first coming to talk about Kumeyaay, my parents, oh, we're not Kumeyaay, we're Decoding,
Yeah.
And my grandma again told him, look, no, that's an old word. That's who we are. You got, it's coming back. She goes, I'm glad to see that. Because, and for a long time, too, a lot of our people were, no, we're Decoding, to where now, I'd say like 90% are now Kumeyaay.
Yeah.
Where
San
before,
Isabel and Verona are holding it.
Yeah.
They're the strongholds of the Decoding nation right now. For sure. I hear that sometimes. People tease me. Oh, it's because you're Kumeyaay.
Well, that's what Tony says, that that those are Kumeyaay songs like Peon and stuff like that. They don't want to sing them. It's like, well, that's us too, but no, those are the Kumeyaay songs. So I'm like, oh, okay. But I mean, in some ways we are growing, and in some ways, I think what it is that we're losing the meanings. We just, sometimes people just think it's Indian and I'm Indian, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And not know, no, there's reasons why we do this. It's not just because we're Indian. No, there's reasons why these things happen like this. And that's what we need to get out to our young people, so that they know that, that this is not just, that's where that sacredness comes into it too, that, the honoring it, and having respect for it. That's what I was always told, that, like the boys that I was teaching. I said, because that's what they said, they're, pretty soon they're not going to sing. They'll think that, I don't want to do it no more. And my whole thing was, as long as you have respect for it, that's okay. If you don't want to do it, it's all right. Because I always used to tell them, don't do it because I want you to, because I do. I want you to do this. Yeah. But it has to be something that you want to do. Even though that's what I want, but it's up to you. And I won't think nothing less of you if you don't want to do it. Yeah. All I ask is that what you're learning here, you learn the respect for it. Mm-hmm. And so...
One of my cousins hit me up on that a while back. He said he lives out of area, and when he was living around here, it was kind of a while back, and he was like, man, he was telling me, man, it's crazy. Like, I remember when I was younger there, like, I got out there and tried a couple times, but it wasn't in me to do it. Like, it wasn't a calling. It was just something I was just kind of like dabbling in. So, but now there's so many people out there. He's like, it's a whole different world. He goes, everybody out there got a calling to do it? And I was like, I don't know. That was a good question. I don't know. I don't know what's in everyone's heart or their mind. But I really do think if you're going to stick with it, because it is a hard thing over a long period of time, you do have to have somewhat of a calling. It has to be something inside you that really makes you want to do it. And it's like, if you're going to put that much of yourself into something, you would want to put your best foot forward and be respectful, do it in a good way.
Well, I think that, I talked about this not too long ago. And because I never knew how to express it. And it all came about. My 5-year-old grandson comes to me and he says, Bubba, do you know how to meditate? And I said, no, I don't. I know what it is, but no, I don't know. And so I happened to be at the education center, and there's a lady there that was going to teach yoga. Well, yoga goes along with meditation. So I was asking her, I said, I always heard, meditation, but I don't know what that is. What do you do to meditate? And she says to me, well, let me ask you something. When you're singing, what are you thinking about? I said, most of the time I'm sitting there just concentrating on the song and I'm just tuning everything out. She goes, that's meditating. What you're doing is meditating. And she said, because I told her, I said, yeah, there'd be times where that I could see everything kind of slow down and it's just so beautiful. And she said, that's the results of meditating. And so when I look at now, we probably had ways of teaching. When somebody would teach you, they would teach you all this stuff that what you could really get out of it. But some of those teachings kind of went away, where because Leroy used to always say, you do this long enough, you'll start to see things, or you'll feel things. And I used to think, like what, I remember the first time hey, Leroy, I had to ask you something. I said, I keep hearing this woman singing, but there's no women here singing. It's just us guys singing, but I hear a woman's voice. And he says, that's good. That's kind of like you're kind of getting there. In other words, you're starting to get in tune to it. So I remember telling the boys that, and all of a sudden they all heard it, right? Not knowing if they did or didn't, but they were just starting to thinking, and because Leroy never mentioned it to me, I mentioned it to him, and I think that my mistake was to mention it to them. They should have been coming to me and say, I hear this.
Yeah.
And because I never knew if they really did or didn't, or they just wanted to act like I've heard this, And so I think there's again, like I said, that's about being in tune into these to these things that today a lot of it's just only gathering. At times it does look beautiful too to see everybody out there dancing and stuff like that. But to take it further than that for yourself.
Yeah.
If you're only going to do it through this gathering stuff, you're never really going to experience that. Uh-huh. And, and and I sang for a long time, and it took years before, like I said, when I finally started hearing it, and that's why I was asking him. But, I've been around it for, a long time, but I never heard that until one day I heard it. And so, like these young guys are telling me they were hearing it right. I'm thinking, how did you hear it so quick, God? But again, I think it was just them just trying to say that, that. But I think that there's a lot of things like that where we kind of lost those teachings that would help us understand it and to understand that, yes, once I start this, because I know what I get out of it. I know that feeling, and it feels good.
You ever get nervous?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Because I've never known you to be someone that's really super outgoing, yet you're always being asked and put in these spots. Can you come speak? Can you come sing? And I'm a little bit more vocal of a person, but I found myself in those positions where people ask me to do stuff, and I'm going, I get really nervous.
Yeah, I get ashamed too.
I get my breathing starts to get monkey. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. Exactly, because I'm not. The one thing I always so admired of Leroy was Leroy would go and he would shake everybody's hand, and and I'm not that kind of person. I'm kind of like. I'm shy.
Yeah.
And most people are like, no, you're not. I'm like, you don't. I am. It's hard for me to do it. I'm a shy. But I used to sit there and admire Leroy because he would go shake everybody's hand and, and even when, he'd make you shake his hand. Like, look, you need to know this is a good thing, because, sometimes people are not teaching their kids that. Respect, have respect for somebody, They shake your hand, shake their hand. Like when I look at Monday, that boy is so very respectful.
He is. He'll stop what he's doing and come over like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, because, he's been around it and people are telling him this is what you do. And, like I look at my grandsons, they won't do that. And I want you to start to start doing that. But, like I said, for some people, like I said, like for me, I know I'm real shy and it's hard for me to do that. And some people can take that, you think you're too good. You act like I'm just like, no, I'm not. Just that I'm shy, And like you said, I get nervous too. Where I'll say, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to sing these songs, and then when I get to, they're gone. I lost them. I'm like, and you know,
I tell my wife it's easier for me to sing like an hour and a half or something like that than to show up and sing 4 songs or 2 songs. You know, like a little short time. Because like when you get to sit there, like for me, I'll be nervous and everything, and then the moment I start singing, like about midway through the first song, I feel okay. My heart rate slows down. Everything's kind of good. I feel normal. But I'll be nervous all the way leading up to that moment. So when I have to go sing for a long duration, that first like 15, 20 minutes, just settling in, relaxing, then I just feel really good. I can sing for a long period of time. But man, it's like a marathon or walking it's like hiking, you know, as opposed to showing up and getting out the car and having someone saying sprint, you know, and you just run, you just get, I know for me, like I'll run out of breath, all kinds of stuff. My heart's beating. I get nervous. I never noticed that. My wife told me that. She'd be like, because I'd start coughing and this and that, and she'd say, relax. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, you do that when you get nervous. You start coughing and you start acting this way and that way. And I never noticed it. And then after that first song of singing or like a little bit, I relaxed. That's where you talked about like being like meditation. I realized the songs are very meditative because you can feel all kinds of weird ways, whether you're upset or angry, sad, or you're physically not feeling good. But you start singing after a while, and then when you're done, you always feel really good. It's a weird feeling.
Well, you know, like lately for me, like I don't know why when I come out of dialysis, I couldn't throw my gourd. And my arm would just get so tired, and I couldn't throw it. And then back here in the back of my neck, it would be so much pain. And I tell myself, but once I hit a certain, it was just gone. It didn't hurt no more. My arm wasn't tired no more. But I don't know if that's because I'm like you're saying, part of being nervous. But all of a sudden, like it's my back, it just, oh man, it'd be hurting, and then once I go through it, then it just kind of like goes away. Like I guess I work it out. I guess you know, but. You know, like, have you ever made a mistake on a song? Like one time I was singing.
Only once.
Singing, you know, and we got done, and one of the boys said, hey, you never sang that song before. I know, because I made a mistake. I was so happy that he knew that he came and asked me.
Sure.
Because that meant he was paying attention. And, you know, I was like, wow, you know, because... no, I made a mistake on that song, you know. And he goes, oh, okay. Because I was like, I don't remember it going like that. I thought, he's singing a new song on this. And I was like, no, I made a mistake. But I was like, wow. Because he was the only one that came to me and said, hey, is this a new song? You didn't tell us before? Like, no, I made a mistake on it. And like I said, that made me feel good because that somebody was really paying attention, you know. Like, because that's what happens, you know. A lot of our people don't even pay attention. Like one time, I was sitting with Delia and Mary, and I was telling them this song, you know, about the coyote, and they were like, "Oh yeah," like I mean, they've heard it all these years, and
they grew up with the language,
and then they're like,
language,
and then. Until I sat down there and went through, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know that." You know, I was like, you know, it's like I'm sitting here thinking, "You guys, you know the language and stuff," but they were never paying attention.
I think like a lot of our people have so much respect for some of these things that they never question it. They never stop and ask. They just kind of go through it. Because I know a few years back we had a cultural program down here, and I was talking to Clarence Brown and Ted and these guys. And they're like, you know what would be really cool is if you guys were to explain to us what those songs that you guys finish up at the gravesite, what they kind of mean, you know? I've never heard it. And I was thinking about it, I was like, man, these guys are always digging for every funeral we have around here. And they're always there, you know, right there front lines, you know, ready to put the bodies down. And they probably heard those songs 1,000 times in their life.
Yeah.
And they don't know what they mean at all, you know? And it's like, if they don't know what they mean, then what does that say about everybody else, you know? And so, anyways, we went over, you know, kind of what they meant, and, you know, what they meant in our language, and, you know, what we're trying to achieve with that. But it was a trip to hear them like say like we don't really know everything that those are about or what. I saw on Facebook, I think, a singer of the North, Mr. Mike Morales, he put on there a while back. He was putting on what he felt was like a good template as to like if you're an upcoming singer or you want to learn how to sing songs, what should you do? Because I know that's a common question. People are always like, well, I want to learn, or usually it's I want my kids to learn or my son to learn or something. Like, what's the process? How do you get involved in that? All that kind of stuff. And he would kind of put out a nice little template as to like, here's what I recommend. And I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if you saw that. But in the middle of all of that, he put, he said the best singer of all the lands was Paul Cuero Jr.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool because Mike's a pretty respected singer. He's one of my favorite singers for sure. So how do you take compliments like that? Because I know everybody's always like, Junior's the best. How do you take that without it letting it like corrupt you in any way? Because I know I can. I'll be like, that's right.
No, it's kind of, like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I guess what the one thing I don't like, and can you come and sing your songs? Junior's going to sing his songs. I'm like, no, they're not mine.
Yeah.
They belong to the people. And, that to me, that take ownership, people. It belongs to you, You could police it because it belongs to you. If you see somebody that you think is not doing right, well, tell them, and sometimes we're all like this. Sometimes we'll do something, we don't realize it until somebody goes, hey. I always use this example that one time we were at the museum over there in Rincon, and their tribal hall, they used to have like a museum in there. And they had a matadi lane, and I had my foot on, and I was doing this, not just thinking. And Steve goes, hey, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, well,
Steve Menegas?
Yeah. It caught me like, I'm disrespecting this,
Yeah.
But at the moment, I didn't think about it, like I said, until somebody said something to me. Now, some people would get mad, but the truth is he's right. I'm doing something wrong, and that's where where we should be when we are doing something wrong. Somebody points it out. Don't take it as they're judging you. So sometimes we do that. We're doing things we're not thinking, but getting back to, I don't think I'm the best. I think there's a lot of good singers out there. It's like one time I went to go sing in Yuma. So I started out, and then Lyman came there. Well, that's his territory, right?
Sure.
He goes, well, we want to sing. I said, he goes, and I said, go ahead, Lyman, you could lead. We'll follow you. This is your home. That's not mine. And the family come up to him. What are you doing? And I said, hey, we worked it out. It's okay. And no, we don't want him to sing right in front of him. And I'm like, well, we worked it out. I'm okay with it. And they said no. And we're going to, they went and got like tribal police or something. And they came over. And I told those guys, come on, we're going to go home. Going home. And they were like, what are you doing? I said, we don't come here to fight. And I said, my people always tell us, you don't fight over this. You'll bring bad upon yourself. I brought these young men to come sing with me. My wife's here. And what's going on here, I don't want to bring no harm to them. We don't fight over this stuff. And, and I'm sorry. But, well, we don't like the way. I said, you know what? This is a ceremony. It doesn't matter how anybody sings as long as they doing it the right way. That's what matters. Not about, well, I don't like his voice. That has nothing to do with this. This is about a ceremony here. And what you're doing goes against everything I was taught. Well, I'm the elder here. I'm the oldest one here. And, and I said, well, then you should know better. You should know better. I know where I come from. My elders would frown upon me sitting here fighting over this. I'm sorry, but I'm going home. And so, we packed up and we left. And they like I said, kept trying to convince me. I said, no, what you did here was so disrespectful, not only to him, but to me. You're almost like putting us against each other, which, like I said, this is his home.
Yeah.
This is not mine. I'm a guest here. And, I said, no, I'm sorry. I'm going home. On the way back, my wife would say, you know what? I'm so proud of you because you stuck to your conviction. You stuck what you were taught. And I said, well, yeah. I said, because we're always told you don't play around with this. You bring harm. And I said, and it's not about the way somebody sings. It's not about that. It's about sending this person home. That's what it's about. It's about what we're here to do for somebody. And instead of appreciating what they have here at home, they're not. And now they're bringing me into it. And I don't need to be a part of that, because I thought, well, when they asked me, I thought, well, okay, maybe he was busy, couldn't do it. But when he shows up and says, hey, I want to sing, and I'm like, well, yeah, this is your home. I'm the guest.
Yeah.
And I was telling the boys that I said, because they were like, I said, yeah. I said, look, you don't fight over this. And don't let anybody come here and tell just because the way somebody sings that they're the one supposed to do it. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's not like that. And, it's about this ceremony and what was supposed to be done right for them. You don't fight over it. I said, that's why we had to leave because I'm not going to fight over this. This is what I was taught that, that you don't fight over this. You're just going to bring more death, and I said, one of the things I was told too is that be careful, don't want to do it so much because the old people would say, you know what, you're going to start eating your family. They'll start because you want to sing so bad. There you are. You're sitting there singing, so, let it be at its own time, don't try to rush it, that I said that, I was lucky enough to be around people to tell us like that, that, you be careful because you want it so bad. Yeah, you might get it, but then there's all your family you're sitting there singing for. It's not a good thing, it'll come at its own time, and, so don't rush it, You don't have to be the biggest and the best, and, it's not about none of that. It's not about that. It's about what doing it because we're helping, not to be, look at me, what I'm doing. It's not about that. It's about we're here to help. And, so you shouldn't be, talking about other singers, It happens. Yes, it does happen.
Do you hear a lot of that? I know I've heard of it seems like not so much in our region, but I've heard you go around, I've heard singers will they like some singers, but then all those guys, they got it all messed up or they only, sing here and there. They won't go everywhere. It's like people are quick to bash other singers, which I don't know. We don't really have that in our area as much. I don't really hear a lot of that. So I always get kind of blindsided when I hear that about somebody, especially considering I know you travel a lot. I travel a lot. You go to these new areas and they take you in and they treat you good. I don't know the politics there. I don't know.
Exactly.
I like everybody and they treat me good. And they're, I don't want to hear something negative about somebody who's been treating me really good, and taking my family in or, fed us at one point. I know I always feel bad hearing that. And I don't know why they have a gripe with somebody or why they don't like their singing or what they say they do in their private life or whatever. A lot of times I don't really know them more than I have interacted with them. And if I like them, it's really hard to hear that sometimes. But I do hear a lot of that out there. People are real quick to put down other singers. And it's unfortunate because I know, to me, it seems like every singer I know really puts their heart into it. It's not an easy road. And I know a lot of people, they put themselves out to do it a lot of times. They're asked to sing and it's it wears on their body, it wears on their personal life, their social life. It's a really arduous thing to take on. And it seems like it's one of the last things that we in our region has that's very old school connection, very old traditional thing that we have. So we should probably be encouraging those who are taking it up. But I do hear that in other areas with singers. And it seems like it's always the same kind of thing, you know. They don't know the order, or they don't know what they're singing, or they didn't learn it right, or you know, it's always kind of like these common arguments that people make on other singers.
Yeah, you know, like like they would say. My grandmother said that sometimes, they have funerals and somebody knew a few songs. They didn't know it all, but they come there and they did what they could. Mm-hmm. They ever said, "Well, no, because you don't know it." You know, that became a later thing now, I think, with people, where before, like I said, you knew something. Tony always tells that, you know something, go help them. Like when I would go sing with anybody, and because for myself, I wanted to hear it, like, oh, what's the differences, listen to that. Like I'd sit there with Steve and I would tell him, hey, you hear how they're singing it? We sing it like this, but this is how they're singing it. You just listen to the differences and stuff like that, like, oh, and he'd be like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, pay attention, But,
yeah.
I think, like, what always gets me lately is that outside people will see our stuff and they'll just like, oh my God, it's so beautiful, and our own people can't see the beauty in it. They can't see that, what we're doing here, especially at the funeral, this, what we go through and what we're doing here is a very beautiful thing. And yet our people can't see it. And you'll get people outside come out and they'll like, oh my God, that ceremony was so, can you do that for me? Mm-hmm. I've had old people come up and say, when my time, will you come and sing? And I just say, well, tell your family. Yeah. Because, I just couldn't come here and just start singing, your family. But yeah, I would tell them that, and Steve, that guy, he makes me laugh all the time. Steve's just so funny. Hey, this lady asked me, when it's her time, she wants us to come sing. Did you get a down payment?
That's messed up. Oh, man. He is funny, though, man. I can't tell you how many times you're sitting there singing. I'm sitting next to Steve there over the years and, like, at a wake or something, and he just has these little observations about things. You're like, it's not the time or place, but, and I don't know what he's joking or what, but he'll say things. I'll just put my head down. I'm like, oh, man. Yeah. But later on, I'll think back to it and just want to bust up, but. It's very unique observations.
Yeah, like he'll say, look at that person. Don't they look like this? Yeah. And I look at him, I'm like, yeah.
You just don't want to look at him and you want to keep your head down. Yeah. He'll just, I remember, I won't name nobody's name, but he told me, man, that person looks like a rodeo clown. And I just didn't even put my head up. And then I had to. I looked and I was like that, like a bandana. I was just like, oh my gosh. It legit did. And I just wanted to laugh, but it was not the time or place.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, he would say things like, get a down payment. But, like, I think that, one of the things that I think that our people should know, too, is that, like, Leroy used to say, you know what? Don't worry that you have to give me all this. He says, as long as I have enough money for gas and a soda home, that's good. Mm. He said, he used to say, so, don't be another burden on the family, like, and I always, like, sometimes, like, you'd go sing somewhere and they'd say, well, how much? And it's like,
I hate hearing that.
I'm like, and I said, well, I always say, well, give me a figure, because I don't know what to say, because we're always told that you don't ask, and, like, and it's like, I see, and I tell them, I say, for us, we're told not to put a figure on it. But, just know this, like if it's a long ways, we're going to, but,
it's nice to have a room in case you have to sleep at all. If you don't want to drive home tired, it's nice to have some gas, to get home if you can.
And then, something to eat, because, like a lot of times after the funeral, I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
And then when I get home later, I'm starving.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you don't want to put a meal together. You want to get something to eat like 5 minutes from your house or something. Yeah. And sometimes, you need to stop in too if you're too tired or driving. you need to pull in, get some coffee, get something, or get a little something in you to get you home,
Yeah.
Even if you do get a room, sometimes you sleep and you can't sleep good because you're tired, and you get up and start heading home, and then it's like you get real tired the next day sometimes.
Well, like for me too, like after I'd go home, I could still hear the singing.
Yeah.
I would hear the singing go on. And to me, it was like beautiful because I could still hear especially I used to hear Jose all the time. I'd go home and I could still hear him singing. And to me, it was, I always liked that. But for some people, I'm like, I'm trying to sleep. But for me, it was so soothing, I guess, like, and for me, ever since I was young, I mean, my legs would always cramp. I mean, I'd go home, go to sleep, and I'd jumping out of bed, legs cramping. And my parents used to be like, well, why do you do it? You know what's going to happen. And I'd be like, well, I know, but it's something I love. And, I'm just going to continue doing it, and, like they were always like, sometimes they weren't as encouraging for it, I remember, when I worked at Sequoia, I didn't make much money, but when they would come up sing, I'd lay money down, and they're not worth that much. And I said, and I'd say, not to you, but to me, it's worth every penny. Yeah. And it took them a long time before them to start to say, that they were end up being proud about it. That I'm glad you're doing this. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. It was like, what do you think? You're undertaker. Why do you have to go? And for me, it was always because I wanted to hear this singing. I thought it was just so beautiful, and then to watch what was always going on and ask questions. And like I tell people, like the old people, they'd see you sleeping, they'd hit you. Hey, get up. You're going to miss it. And, as a boy, you'd say, like, I didn't understand. What do you mean I'm going to miss it? Or they'd say, you didn't come here to sleep. Stay awake. Try your hardest. It was always them, not my own family. But my great-grandmother, she's the one that, they were very proud that I was taking this on because they were like, somebody's going to sing. So the older people there were always very, very good to me. I remember one time we were playing outside, kids, and there was this one boy, we were, playing outside, and I was running, and I kicked him in the face. Not on purpose, it was nighttime, we were running, and he was laying on the ground. I didn't see him. I kicked him in the face. He came in crying. And, his mom came home. She was just, ready to beat me up, I think. I kicked her baby, and she was yelling. And when the oldies got up and said, you stop it right now. If Junior told you that it was an accident, it was an accident. He's a good boy. And you don't need to be talking to him like that. And it stopped her. And, man, I was like, wow, But that's how they felt. They were feeling that they were so happy that somebody was taking this on, that it wasn't going to die. And, so, eventually, I sang for every one of those old people. They end up, passing on. But just the stories that they would give you and talk about different things, that what they seen or what they experienced, it's like, wow, it's, I probably wouldn't know as much as I do today from them telling me different things, sharing, where, like my parents, they regret it, they always regret it later that they didn't teach us the language, but they only went by what happened to them. And they were afraid that was going to happen to us, that we'd be beaten and stuff. And so they didn't teach us. But then when we got older, they were like, we should have taught you, but we didn't want you to experience what we experienced. And, now when I look at it, like I knew a lot more words too, now that they're gone. And I forgot so much, because when I was a boy, that's all people still spoke. They only spoke the language. And like I said, we lived up there was mostly old people. Like when we lived in town when I was a boy, I went to kindergarten, first grade. And half through first grade, we moved back to the reservation. I couldn't even live. I had to live with a family because the bus didn't go through this to the reservation. So I had to live with Nicole and those guys because they lived right there in Boulevard. And I had to live with them so I could go to school. And Nicole's great-grandmother, her name was Marie. That lady, she loved me, and I think about it because, living in the house there was her daughter, and her daughter, and her 2 daughters. They're all girls. And here I come this boy. I'd come home, she would have food for me ready. Like she took so good care of me. Like she's like, this is my boy, like kind of like, and like, she used to make baskets all the time. We'd go out there and pick the grass. And we'd be out there, and she said, well, pick that. We're going to use that to make tea out of, to drink. And I think about all these times like, man, sometimes I wish I was older so I could have, be able to remember all these things that when I was a boy, of course, you just forget it. But, I remember when that lady died, and that was the first time that I knew what death was. That was the first time I remember, looking at her in the coffin and, crying and, trying to wake up, nothing. That's the first time that I really knew what death was, because that, like I said, that old lady treated me so well. But, like I said, all this, the influence that these people have given me that had taught me how to be, hey, give what you can, do help as much as you can, learn this stuff, pass it on. When I first was going to see Ship Peck, she wouldn't let me look at none of that stuff. She was like, no, I can't do it. And she said, well, you got to ask Tony. And then Tony told her, you let him go through whatever you have. And so she said, okay. So finally she let me into all the stuff that she had. And one of the things that I did do was go get all her recordings. And we took it to Elster's and we made copies of it. And there were some songs on there. And there was, of course, the people talking. There's tapes of her interviewing Delfina Cuero. And so when she died, I still had those tapes. And Carl was like, well, we need those tapes back. And, he was harassing Elster because he's the one that had them. And I told Elster, yeah, give them back. They're not mine. They belong to the people. I want the people to have. I only wanted it because I wanted to know what was on there. So whatever I learned, I could teach, tell people. And it belongs to that collection. So give it all back. Give it all back because it's important it stay together. But again, like some people would like hoarded it and not let it go. But that's not the right thing to do. The right thing, it belongs to all of us. And that's, that's the one thing that always got ingrained to me. It's not yours. It's ours. It belongs to us. And I think only sometimes lately people want to be able to have this information. So I know this, you don't know it. And it's like, no, that's surely it will die then. No, it's meant for the people. We're supposed to tell, what give it, because it don't belong to you. It belongs to us. And that, so for me, it's always been about that. Whatever I learned, hey, this is what I learned, what I read, what I came across, and people helped me. Like, for instance, the other day, Jay Levy texted me, I don't know if you know who Jay Levy is.
From Kokopog?
No, he's an anthropologist. And he was out here when he was in high school. Oh, okay. And he was so he hung around the Campo people for a long time because he was interested, and he was, like I said, he was in high school, and they taught him a lot of things. So the other day he texts me and he says, Matham, do you know what that means? And I said, yeah, it means like a year. And I said, and because I remember Leroy, the first time Leroy brought in that word, he said, I think they say Matham for a year. He goes, I heard that. And one day I came across it and I said, hey, Leroy, it is true what you said. I read this where it says Matham means a year. And he goes, oh. And then Jay Levy said, it's really deeper than that, because this is what your people told me. Matham really means like the earth had died. He said, our people believe that the earth died every year and it was reborn. And he said, so that's where that word comes. It means that the earth had died and now it's reborn. And so that's what it really means. It's not just, like a year had passed. No, it means that the earth had died and now it's going to be fresh. It's going to become new again. And so I was like, wow, I didn't know that. Somebody, taught me that. So right away I start telling people that, hey, because it helps us with our language, and then part of our philosophy, how we thought and how we did things, and why we do these things. There's, like I always tell people, like we've been stagnated for a long time. We're not creating and we're not doing. And we need to start doing that again, because that brings us alive. I always, like some people always talk about that colonization, like it's a bad thing. And I look at it like this, I like riding in a car.
Yeah.
I
think if everybody says decolonize, and I get what they're saying, like all the bad history and all that, but we all have to be a little bit honest and be like, well, there's some things that I don't mind me a steak once in a while, or whatever the things that have changed over the time.
But there's also a ways to incorporate it to what becomes ours within our thinking, our philosophy. So but if we don't know our own philosophy good enough, then how do we incorporate it? Just like a long time ago, you look at all those stories that happen to deal with animals. And it's because our people studied the animals. They knew their movements. They knew all these things. So they could refer to something and you would understand that. Oh, I see that. Well, today, a lot of our kids, I always talk about like my grandsons, they're scared of every little bug. They're like, I don't want to be outside,
Yeah.
So it's like there's this whole change. So now we have to take those old stories and modernize them to say, this is what we're trying to get you to, this is the moral, or here's the value out of it. So that way you have these morals and values that they, like I always tell people, right and wrong never change. It's always that. It's right and it's wrong. Those things don't change. We might think of it but being different, but there's the truth of it is, So our ways of always, we're talking about, this is why we do these things, and this is why you don't do that. So there's that right and wrong to it. But we don't have ways to tell our children that, when it comes like now we're dealing with the internet, we're dealing with all these different things but our stories do connect to some of these things. This is why you don't do that. That, hey, you could sit here all day looking at your computer and but the truth of the matter is your bones start to get weak. All these things that really physically happening to you because you're not out there. So you have to have the balance to it. There has to be a balance because we all do, because you can find good information off of this too, but there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
And how do we create stories that talk about that balance? That what we've always had. We've always had this balance, but now how do we take it and create it into today's living, so that we're always teaching our young people about, like I said, about giving, because that's the first thing that the Creator does is give us something. And that's how we should be able to give, because we're going to get it back. It's always going to come back. Just like I always tell people, like, this singing has always taken care of me. It's always taken care of me, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, because because they don't have, they never been engaged into it good enough to have that understanding that sometimes, like you say, you could be feeling the worst, and you could start singing, and it'll start to take that away. Or or you're feeling sad, or you could start singing a song that bringing that back out of you. It has that power, but you have to know it. You're not going to get that by, I know this one song. No, because there's a whole series of it. There's a whole, it all comes together. It's all about life. And when you start to learn all of that, then you really see the importance of it. That's why you don't want it to die. That's why, we try to keep it going, and like we do know, we know that these songs were not meant for our funerals. We had other songs for that. But this is the only one that we have left. And the way the old people used to say is because it came from the Creator, it's all prayers. That's how the old people used to say it's prayers. It comes from the Creator himself. Talking about the snake, it came from him. And so it's prayers. We can utilize it that way. So when you know the songs, whatever you're coming to sing for, you try to incorporate those songs for what you're doing there. Like one time we came to sing for Vicky Kambala. She was going to retire. So I said, we're going to sing that song talking about go fishing. Because, you always hear that, I got time to go fishing. I'm retired. So I said, so we're going to sing that song about fishing because she's retiring. So we're going to try to put it to that.
Yeah.
So that's, and grant you, I don't know all the songs. I don't know every meaning. But the ones that I do know, I try to place them into things that whatever we're doing. So that, again, that, we're singing because of that. And we're trying to place those songs for that. But that's learning to try to learn as much as you can. Like, Chris Alvarado says now he has them all translated. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I am too. I was interested.
Because, Tony knows a lot of language too. And he's been trying to do that too. And, and one of the things that he was saying is that, because like if I know a little bit about that song, I'll tell him and I'll say, well, because that's our dialect down here. So, and what we're kind of realizing that the songs are in all the different dialects. That that maybe they sing it this way because this is how they say it over there, or we sing it over here because this is how we say it over here. But you could see that that makes sense. These songs, they're just now it's the problem of putting it together and seeing the different dialects in it. For instance, the songs like the Cocopas are the ones that say that they sing that song. So George told us that song's talking about it's a long time before the sun comes up. So we have a long ways to go before down there they say, the birds are lost. But Mut and Yah, Mut is the mountain and Yah is the sun. And that's what he's saying. It's a long time before. We still have a long ways to go because the sun hasn't come over the mountain yet. But down there, they're saying, no, it's talking about the birds are lost. And they're trying to find their way back. And I was like, wow, so that's a big difference. And so I asked Stan one time, and he's like, well, no, it means the same thing down there too, and down in the tribes down there. And I was wondering, is he telling me the truth or not? I don't know.
Yeah, it is hard though, because I was a Peon song, that Kima Kima. I always hear that.
Yeah.
That's the dance. Kima is the dance. And then someone was saying, no, that's not what that means. It actually means to go to sleep. You want to go to sleep. Come on. Because I was like, well, when I hear Shema, come Kishma, go to sleep, Shema. I was raised Shema is to sleep.
Yeah.
Kama, Hama, when I was raised, it was a male penis.
Yes.
You know, I guess a flaccid one. Yeah. Homo could be a hard one, I guess. I don't know. But in the northern dialects, Hama is interchangeable with Shema. Yeah. So they'd say, Kam Hama, go to sleep. So if you're singing Hama, Kama, you're actually saying sleep, sleep, sleep. So they would be singing Kima, 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 go to sleep, go to sleep. Whereas I've always heard that song, Kima is to dance, or Ima is to dance. Kama is like a command, like dancing the sticks, or you're dancing. There's a few of those songs that you're dancing the sticks over, essentially. Yeah. But again, it's just the same word, same sound, pretty much. And I remember we were singing down here, doing something, and Leroy, the late Leroy, was here, and he leans to me. He goes, the song is real simple. Just the sun's going over the mountain, He says, but I've heard people get up and they'll say it's about the rabbit. And I said, the rabbit? And he said, yeah, Kumeyaay is the name of a rabbit. Yeah. He said, but, Kumeyaay, the sun, Kumeyaay, hop, it's going up. He said, well, they say the rabbit's coming out of the house. And I was like, huh, okay, well, he spoke the language really well. He traveled, knew dialects and stuff. He just said, like, that's just people who don't, you hear the song, it's taught to you this way, and that's kind of what you know about it, according to the language you speak. And then there's people who speak the language well, don't know that, and they're just listening to the song, and they're going to have their own thought process as to what the song means. That being said, I went out to Yuma one time, and I was listening to them singing, and one of the leaders there was telling his student, they sang it right before midnight, and I heard him, and he said, this song is talking about the rabbit in the moon. Now you can see it going up and over, now it's going to be midnight. The same song, and I thought, it's weird because all saying different things, but they're really all saying the same thing. Yeah, it was really interesting to hear that. And then you start listening to the language differences just in our own tribe here, and then you go to the next tribe and they have their language differences, and you realize how old these songs are. And that's why, like, when I hear about a project where it's like, okay, we got all the songs, we know all the meanings, I want to hear that because I do know that some of the tribes have different meaning and interpretations for some of it, and it makes it difficult. And so to me, it's always like, well, I'm just going to listen to, I'll listen to them all, I don't want to discredit nobody either. So it's interesting. It's,
like I said, for me, I just want, if there's some songs there I don't know and I can learn, okay.
What's the harm?
And like I said, I don't know them all. I don't know all the meanings, and and that's what I was told to young boys I said, I don't sing them all. I hear songs people sing, and I don't sing them. That doesn't mean that it doesn't go in here. It's part of it. There's probably there's a lot of songs, and I'm not the one that knows it all, or even want to act like I know it all, because I don't. And the biggest thing is just to be humble about it. Be humble. Don't go around acting like you know it all, or you're the end of all. That, because it's I remember even George would say that I don't know this song either. So. And I see that even with some of the tapes that were out there where, some of the singers saying, I don't know. I remember one time Kenny telling me that, Kenny Phillips, I sang with him a lot, and that was Dale's brother. Yeah, cool. And Kenny told me, he goes, oh yeah, Paul, one time we went and sang in town in Yuma. And they said, well, can you tell us what these songs mean? And he goes, I got up, man. I said some good things, Because I don't know what they mean, but, I had to make something up. They listen, and...
But at the same time, like, how can you explain so much in such little time?
Yeah. And he spoke Kokapa, but he was, he was saying the same thing. Yeah, there's, And like one time, the first time I sang by myself was at old man Domingo Cuero's funeral. And we were waiting for the singers to come, waiting for it. And some of the older people said, you need to start singing. Start. I'm like, no. I'm waiting for Kenny to get here. I sing with him. I'm not. They said, no, you know some songs start. I kept saying no, and they said, no, you know that it's not right. You know this, you should do it. I said, well, I know some. So I started singing. Well, Kenny got there. He was sitting outside listening, you know. And finally, I took a break, and then he came in, and he goes, man, there's some songs that you're singing that I don't sing. And I came across that with Linwood too. Linwood said, hey, those beginning songs that you're singing, I don't sing those. And I told Linwood, I said, I'll give you a tape. This is the first 50 songs that we sing. And so I said, here, and so, he's been listening to it, I guess, I don't, for me, I was just like, if I can help you here, because again, it belongs to all of us, but at the same time too, what I want too is them to recognize who it comes from. It comes from our people here. And when you get down there, a lot of those elders know that, but they're dying off, and they're starting to think, well, no, this is our song. And but you talk to their elders and they'll tell you, oh, no, it's not, we know where it came from. But now you're getting to generations where they don't know that. And, they're thinking, and like I said, it's all about respect, just have respect for it. That's all we're asking. You want to sing it? Good, go ahead. But have respect for it. And, like, I don't know if you've seen those people that are in Texas that are doing it, where it's so disrespectful.
Yeah,
and they're just lying. Oh, this was our song a long time ago, when they know that these people were a mixed people that came together, and yet they're exploiting it, and not just telling the truth. And the truth of the matter is, they said one of those guys came from L.A., and he went back and started teaching because what he had heard out here. And so it's not that they have had these songs a long time ago. It was somebody that came out here and then took it back home over there, and now made up their own songs. But oh my God, they're just so no rhythm, no
it's a mess.
Yeah,
they should just come out and say this is something we developed right now.
Yeah,
and I don't know how they. And it's crazy because they're getting endorsed by professional basketball team, by universities. They're getting endorsed by these large entities, and they really can't in any way track where they learn these things. And it's not like 100 years ago where there was no photography or film or anything like that. Like I was reading a book. I don't know if you read this. It's really good. It's called, I think it's called Medicine Man, but it's of a doctor who lived up in San Isabel from like 1914, 15 to like the 1930s, somewhere in there.
I just got that book.
It's great. You're gonna love it because you go, if you haven't read it yet. He talks about going to all these locations, and he goes out to Campo. He goes out to Manzanita. Here, Viejas isn't developed yet, so it's Los Conejos.
Yeah. And
what's great is that he documents like who he talks to. So my great grandfather's in there. He talks about him and his kids. My on my mom's side, and he talks about my father's great grandfather up in San Isabel and my wife's family. He's talking about all these families, and it's like if you know who those families are, you know exactly who he's talking about.
Yeah.
But he has a story where he talks about coming down to Los Conejos. We had a gathering down there, and what he says is that he brought his son and his good friend and their women, and they came down. Well, they got word that the next village over there was somebody that was sick or injured, so he had to go through the middle of the night to go tend to him. But he left his women there in Los Conejos. And so from their like diary entries, they were all nervous. They thought for sure when the sun goes down, the Indians are going to come swarm these white women. And it's real funny to hear them describe it, Kind of reminds me of a scene out of, was it Little Big Man? When they swear, when she's like, they're coming for me now. But what they describe is that they go to their little hut that was made for them. The Indians down there, told them, hey, we made these huts for people coming in. We want to give you one. Like you were saying earlier, give the fire, give wood and some food and stuff. And, you can turn in whenever. And so they were all scared when the sun went down, but they went and laid down. And what they heard is they heard a gourd rattle and they heard some singing. And they look out and they describe that, them singing bird essentially. And then they were talking, later on they started talking as they got later, they started describing the Peon games. And it's really cool to hear that because that's like 1920s down in Los Conejos. It's a real small population. Out of that group that came up to Viejas, I think there was only like 30 that came out of that village. And it's cool because that's my family essentially. Like the La Chapas down there. My great grandfather was the captain / BIA police later on and stuff. And his grandson was a singer that sang down there. But it's all documented in that book. And it's really cool because there's a longevity to it where, we can go back now online and see pictures of us doing this 20 years ago. You can go to the newspaper and see our people doing this, 50 years ago, 40 years ago. You got ethnographies of us doing it. We have books like that, going way back. But then you have this group popping out of nowhere, Texas, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is traditional to us. But they have none of that. They have no lineage to the songs. And I personally always tell the youngsters and everybody at this point, the lineage is really what helps those songs along, in a lot of our ways along, because when we're singing a song or whatever the song is, for me, I can hear another singer singing it. And a lot of times it's someone passed on. So if I'm singing a song, I can remember Leroy singing that or Kenny or these other guys that a lot of them are passed on. Or other singers who are active, I can hear them singing that song in my ear. And it's cool because that's like a connection to older singers, and that predates me, predates all of us. Yeah. It goes way, way, way back. That's like a connection that makes it sacred in some regards, that it's been passed down generational. And then it's really for me, it's a real humbling thing because it's like, okay, in 100 years from now, no one's probably going to remember me that I ever sang a song or participated. But it's like if we now do it in a good way, they'll still have the songs and they'll be doing it in a good way and they'll still be going forward. And so that's a real humbling thing I like to think about. Sometimes.
Yeah, I just got that book and I think Dave Toller gave it to me.
Yeah, that's who sent me one. Yeah, I was talking to him. He said, you know what, I have a copy, I'll send one. So, all right. It's great for our region. And it really does talk about a lot of the lifestyle that they had at that time. And, life was hard, life was different. They weren't able to just get in the car and drive to the next res like they can now. They described Los Conejos being like this real arduous, deep trek into the, most rural part of San Diego County.
Well, and, really, it's really down in the valley
it's
there.
It's
man. Easy to get there with a car, but can you imagine when they didn't have roads and it's just walking down?
It's a whole different lifestyle. Yeah. My mom's grandfather was married to a woman, and they were down there. When they came up to Conejos, she was already an old woman. She was like in her 90s. And apparently she had never, she only spoke Kumeyaay, and she had never seen the ocean in her lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Because they were so rural, so far down there. By the time it was safe, when she was a young girl, it wasn't safe for young girls to kind of travel around. Yeah. So they kind of kept her down there protected. And by the time she was able to it was safe for her to travel around, she was an old woman. So she never made it down the hill and back. So she passed on up here in Viejas, but she had never seen the ocean in her life. And I don't know, things like that give real perspective to where we're at and where we're going. So
that's why we need a place down there of our own that we know it belongs to us. Because in some perspective, we talk about freedom, but the truth of the matter, we don't have freedom. Not the freedom that we knew what freedom was. I was talking to somebody, we're talking about the pandemic, they're saying, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Now it's going to be mandatory that some places make it mandatory that you have to get the shots, or you can't work here. And it's like, well, where's the freedom? It should be up to the individual. If they want it, they don't want it, because that's what freedom is. And, what they don't realize, the outside community, when we talk about freedom, for us, we come out here and build a fire and sit in front of it. And down there, you have to get a permit and you have to, do all these different things. And it's like, then they look at us and say, why do they get to have that? You can have it too. But you chose to put these things in place. you chose to take your freedoms away. We haven't done that. So in some perspective, we kind of have too, though. But we still know what freedom is, and now it's getting to be where our government's taking some of our freedoms away, and we're not as free as people think we are. And we knew what freedom was. We knew it, and and then now we know what it's like to be, not able to go, like you're talking about the old lady never getting a chance to go see the ocean. And it's all because what could happen to her, Luckily, times are kind of changing somewhat, but then, I don't know. I mean, it seems like things are getting bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting times.
Yeah.
But, how do we make sure that we survive it? How do we make sure that we, we're in the 22nd century, that we still retain some of these things that we've always had, our freedom to believe and our freedom to sing and our freedom to do, to utilize that freedom, that's what we want to hold on to. But we're not going to hold on to that if we're not involved. And that's what, again, it comes back to that, we have to hold on to these things. Not one person can hold on to it, because when that person's gone, then it's gone. We see that happen a lot with our elders, like every time one of them die, we lose a part of us, we lose something, that we didn't know. And it could be a simple thing as, hey, I remember when they put that well in over here, and this is what they came across. I mean, just simple things like that, we don't have. I mean, like right now, when I look at, like, even our graveyard, there's people there, I don't know. Like the other day, I was looking for my great-great-grandfather, and I don't know where he's buried at. And we don't have nothing written to say, yeah, that's this person, this person, this person, this person. And someday, it's going to take us to take care of it. Like now, when I see, when it comes to, November 2nd, everybody decorates, the crosses. There's a lot of crosses that are not being decorated because the family's gone or nobody knows who they are. And that's where we're supposed to come in and say, we're going to do it, they're still our people. We're going to take care of them. That's like when I tell people, like, we have graveyard cleaning. Well, what's that? I go, we go cut the weeds. We take care of it. Because I've been to some graveyards where they don't take care of it. It's like,
yeah, or they have like their staff come take care of it.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, we've always taken care of this, making sure we cut. Some of it, like today, a lot of these people's taken on our ways. We always hear we're a Christian Judeo country, but when you look at what they believe that once you die, you go to sleep. We believe once we die, we stay here a year, and then we send them to heaven as we know it. And now you hear a lot of people talking about, they're looking down on us. Well, that comes from our belief system. That's not theirs. Theirs is that they're sleeping and waiting for resurrection. Ours is that, hey, they're there, and we're going to meet them again. Yeah. And so you hear a lot more people thinking that way, where that, hey, that's not your belief, that's ours. That's the beauty of ours.
Yeah.
And our own, like I said, our own people can't even see it. Hey, we had a ceremony to make sure we get them there. It takes us to get them there. And, we're just going to bless the headstone. We're not making that journey for them. We're not helping them get there. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it, that we're sending these people. We're kind of flipping. We're taking their beliefs where, yeah, you're going to sleep. Nobody cares, That's it. Where ours is like, no, we're going to meet them again. They're up there, And like I said, the white people believe that more than we do now, it seems like.
Well, I think once they attached that to the Lion King, Disney's Lion King with Mufasa in the sky. I think that helped everybody realize the ancestors are looking down on us or something like that. But I mean, it lets people, when we talk about journeying on the other side, like it's a proactive or an active thought process that our people are going to journey on to be with the Creator. Sleeping's one thing, but I don't know. I like to think of my old ones when they pass on that they're on a journey, that they're strong again, that they're living their best life. Their soul has gone on to do its best thing, and
I like to believe that sometimes they come and see us. Like I always I see them in my dreams. Like a lot of times I'll dream about my parents, my sister. They come and come talk to me. Come and where it feels good. I know that they're still around. And that's that's the beauty in it. That that they're waiting for me. That someday I'll be there to join them again. That's that. That's. But we'll have somebody to show us the way. They're there to greet us. That's how the old people used to say. Like when we do that ceremony, they're doing one too. We're sad on this side. They're happy on that side because they're welcoming them home. And we're over here. We're not going to see them. We're sad, but over there they're celebrating because they're coming home. And we'll all get there, that's, like I always tell people, that big difference that we have when it comes to Christianity is that we don't have a hell and we're equal to all the animals and all the plants. We're equal to those things. Where in the Bible, God put man over everything. For us, we weren't. We weren't over them. We were equal to them. And so that means we don't have the right to exploit them because they're the same as us. We don't have a right to wipe them out. We don't have a right to say, you can't do this. They're equal to us. And that's really big. So that means that, that we, in some perspective, we take care of each other, and so, it's just that philosophy that our people have. When you really look down to it, it's a very beautiful thing. And, you're never busy enough where you can just, I'm too busy for that. Because there's never enough time. Like my wife was saying that, you ever talk to old people, they'll always tell you, I wish I had more time. More time, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, but I didn't have the time. And so time is short, so make the best out of it, Do what makes you happy, what makes everybody happy,
Well, I do believe a couple of things. One, I believe when I pass on, I'm a young guy, but when that day does come, I do think there will be people in place to keep it going. And I think a lot of that has to do with you and people like you in our community who devoted a big chunk of your life to not only live this lifestyle and walk this way, but to teach others. Because you do see younger generations, my age and lower, be able to learn these things. And they're in a process of learning and mastering and getting it to the next generation. You're seeing little kids participating. And so, I'm really thankful for that, to know that I think that'll continue to strengthen like that. And I believe that I agree too, that we have a very beautiful culture, beautiful way. And I just want to thank you too, because a few years ago, I went through some hardships in my personal life and it was rough, man. I'm kind of in front of a lot of people sometimes. So when you fall down in front of everybody, everybody sees it and everybody wants to have something to say. But it was very hard on my family and myself. And on top of all of that, I'd lost a really good childhood friend that I grew up with. And I was at his funeral. And I remember you came over to me and you told me when it was done, you said, singing's in your heart, keep doing it. Keep doing what's in your heart. And you promoted me to keep doing what, continuing on. and encouraging in that way. And I think that that's something that is powerful for our people. We forget to do that sometimes, or we don't do it enough, which is to encourage one another to continue on, stay course, stay strong. Our people have gone through so much, and so many hardships, and they would not have gotten to where we are today if they didn't encourage one another and stay course through hard times and learn and grow and come out of those hard times, sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker, but, always wiser. And I'm really thankful for my ancestors, thankful for my family, my people. I'm thankful for you and all the people around. We're really blessed, and I think we take it for granted sometimes what we have in our communities, this circle, this ability to come together, support each other, sad times, happy times, and everything in between. And, I'm always very thankful for all the opportunities I'm ever given, the life that I've lived, lessons I've learned, and people who have always been supportive. And, thank you so much for all the support. When I first started running Peon games, I was scared, and I remember John said, no, he asked me, can you run these games? I won't be able to make it. And I was kind of like, you have to, because he was going out of town. It was the next night. I said, yeah, I guess. He said, no, if you have any problems, just go ask Junior. Junior will help you out. And I said, all right, I will. So, and I told you that night, I said, hey, I'm running the games, but, I'm a little shaky. I'm going to come to you if I don't, if I have any issues. And you were like, no, come see me if you need any help, whatever. I didn't need any help that night. Everything was real smooth, luckily. But moments like that are huge, and they really do promote the next generation. So, well, thank you for that.
The one thing I always told the boys and the girls when we sang that, that you got to understand this. You're not the first, meaning that you're going through something. You're not the first person to experience this. You're not the last one. The one thing that we can say is you're not alone. We're here for you. So that's what I get out of singing, like, again, the experience that I have had, it's not the first time some other people have experienced. I've had my bad days and sad times. And, like I said, it's nobody's exempt from none of this stuff. But the one thing that we could count on is we're not alone. That's where we come together. And, as long as we do that, we'll always be strong. We'll always be here. And these songs will always, last throughout the times, But that's what you have to have, that thinking, though. And that, again, that's, again, getting back to the philosophy and the morals and the values of it. Because that's what kept it intact. That's what kept this thing going. And, like I always tell people, it's never too late. It's never too late, to do this. I remember George used to think that. He used to say, people would ask him, can you teach me? And he'd say, you're too old. And he would say, well, what do you mean I'm too old? He goes, because you're not going to listen to me. You're already a man. You're already grown. You know what you need to do. I'm going to tell you things, and you're going to say, well, no, I think I'm going to do it this way because you're a man. He said, so that's why he would say, you're too old. And, and I guess probably too, like, I don't have the time, But the truth of the matter is, anybody can learn this. It's never too late. Like I said, if anything that we want you to leave with is just to have respect for it. If you take that away, you take a lot away. Take that. If you take that to you, that I'm going to respect this no matter what, then yeah, you're doing all of us a great thing by respecting that. And, and always teaching that. Just have respect for it. Like you said, it's not for everybody. That's okay. Just respect it, because it's something that's been passed down for, we don't know how long. We know it's been, thousands of years. But that's what, like some of the elders would say, I don't know what it was with bird that it hung around. All that, stood this test of time, but it's still here. And, where we lost a lot of other songs, and too, that because our people were trying to survive. You know, they were trying to survive, and not everything clicked. You know, and it's no fault, but we can always create. Look at Tipai. Tipai is a newer song. It was created. You know, so we could do that, but we have to know our language. You know that, you know, so that we you know, we could do it. And you know, like I always tell people, yeah, even Peon songs, you can make your own up. Make your own Peon songs. Learn some language. You know.
What was that song up north? The Love the Logger, or what is it?
Yeah, Lucky Logger.
Lucky Logger. That might be another jam coming this way. Really appreciate you coming, Junior, and all that you do. Like I said, you know, you're an elder in our area here and all around. People, like I said, even the great Mike Morales said the number one singer is Junior, and I can't disagree. It's good to have you here, and you got to come back in sometime, you know, and keep sharing. But I know Jodine's probably going, "Where's Junior?" So I know my wife's probably hit me up too. It's been good talking to you, though.
Thank you for inviting me. And like I said, you know, this is a good thing what you're doing, because it's sometimes people don't have the time. You know, we're in a generation where we have to give it the things to them because they're going to do it on their time.
Yeah.
And it's because the world's moving so fast, and you know, so we have to make it available. And that's what you're doing here by doing this is, you know, because once it's out there, well, you could take any time to listen to it.
Yeah, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. I always tell people that. Someone told me, why don't you just make 20-minute videos? I said, well, it's long, but you don't have to listen to it all at once. You can just chunk it out here and there, you know, but it's there, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with that, Junior, live from the res, holler.